Story 1. Zen Stories for Sleep. The Bell in the Mountain. A Koan of Awareness. Section 1. Hey guys, tonight we are going to explore some timeless Zen stories that have helped people find peace and relaxation for centuries. If your mind's been racing all day, these tales might gently pull you back to the stillness waiting within. You imagine the sound of a bell echoing through a quiet valley, only to realize it was never struck. The silence itself rings truer than any tone, and somehow that silence begins to soothe you. In our busy lives, it is easy to forget that calm is not out there. It is already yours to uncover. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I would love to know, where are you watching from tonight? And what time is it there? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let us ease into tonight's journey together. You sit within an old wooden temple nestled high in the mountains. Around you, mist drifts like pale veils, softening the outlines of trees and rocks. The air is cool, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. Before you stands a great bronze bell darkened with age, silent and heavy in its frame. You notice how its surface carries faint engravings, clouds, lotus flowers, circles without end. The monk who tends this bell walks with deliberate calm, his robe brushing softly against the stone floor. Tonight, he will not strike it. Instead, he shares with you a teaching. Sometimes the absence of sound is the clearest resonance of all. The Buddha taught that clinging fuels suffering. Let that sink in for a moment. To crave sound when silence is offered is just another form of clinging. You wait for the bell, expecting the deep note to roll across the valley, but the silence continues, wrapping you like a blanket. It is in that absence that you feel the teaching come alive. Letting go does not mean losing. It means discovering what is already here. Some Zen monks in China practiced a curious exercise. They would gather before a bell and sit in meditation, never ringing it. They called it listening to the unborn sound. You sit with them in imagination, ears open, mind alert. At first, you hear only the restless chatter inside your head, the day's conversations, small worries, plans unfinished, but gradually the mind quiets. Suddenly, you hear the rustle of your own breath, the faint pulse in your ears. Nature reveals itself, the rustling leaves outside, a single bird shifting in its nest. Isn't it strange? The bell never sounded, yet sound surrounds you more than ever. What would happen if you stopped fighting the noise in your mind? If, instead of waiting for a perfect silence, you allowed the imperfect quiet to hold you? The monk smiles without explanation, as if inviting you to test this question yourself. You realize that the bell, silent as it is teaching you more than its deep voice ever could. You place your hand on its cool bronze surface. It feels alive, resonant even without being struck. You recall the teaching of emptiness, how form is empty, and emptiness is form. The bell, silent, reveals the fullness of the world. The pine trees outside sway gently, and their movement is like a bow of gratitude. The monk leans closer, whispering a parable. Once, a young student grew restless, waiting for enlightenment. He begged his teacher to strike the bell, to give him the sound he craved. The teacher simply asked, "Who is it that hears the bell?" The student sat with the question for years, until he discovered that the true bell had always been within. You let this settle in your heart. Who is it that hears your thoughts, your worries, your hopes? If the bell is silent, and yet you still hear, perhaps the sound you seek is your own awareness. The air grows cooler. You hear the wind rustling the leaves outside. Nature's own lullaby, is not it? The monk bows to you, and you bow in return, both of you sharing the silence. Your chest feels lighter, as though something has been gently released. Remember the monk who smiled at the tiger in an earlier tale? His peace came not from changing the world, but from changing how he met it. So too with you and the silent bell. The silence is not empty. It is generous, vast, unending. Your breathing deepens as you rest in this truth. The bell, though silent, rings within you now. And as the mist curls through the wooden beams, you realize you no longer need the sound. The silence is enough. Section 2. You find yourself walking a winding mountain path, the temple behind you now hidden by mist. The stone steps are uneven, worn down by centuries of monks and pilgrims who came before. Your sandals scuff gently against the earth, the rhythm of each step becoming its own soft drumbeat. A faint breeze slides along the ridgeline, carrying with it the smell of wet moss and pine needles. Every step feels deliberate, as though the mountain itself is guiding your pace. The Buddha often reminded his students of mindfulness in simple acts: walking, breathing, eating. He said, "When walking, just walk." Tonight, you feel the full truth of that teaching. Each step places you fully in this moment, nowhere else. You are not climbing toward a goal, not rushing to reach the top. You are simply here, step after step, hearing the gentle crunch of gravel beneath your feet. Zen monks sometimes practice kinhin, the art of walking meditation. They move slowly, often in circles, each step taken with careful awareness of the breath. It looks almost peculiar. So deliberate, so slow. But when you imagine yourself joining them, pacing across a temple courtyard, you notice how your mind begins to match the calm rhythm of your steps. Thoughts that once darted like sparrows now settle, wings folded. As you walk, a quirky memory rises. In one Japanese monastery, monks would carry small bells tied to their belts during walking meditation. The bells chimed lightly, reminding them of presence. If their minds wandered, the chime would call them back. You wonder, what would it be like if every time your thoughts drifted today, a soft chime sounded? Would it irritate you, or would it bring you back again and again to the steady ground beneath your feet? Ahead, the path narrows between tall cedars. Their trunks stretch endlessly upward, and the air grows cooler under their canopy. You feel the brush of their presence as calming, like walking through a cathedral made not of stone, but of living wood. The silence here is deep, broken only by your footsteps and the occasional whisper of leaves high above. You pause, noticing how stillness itself has a sound. Isn't it strange how silence can sometimes feel louder than words? The Buddhist concept of right effort gently arises here. It does not mean forcing yourself or pushing harder. It means walking with just enough energy, neither too tight nor too slack. You smile at the thought. Life itself is a path, and maybe the most important thing is to simply keep walking with awareness. Not too hurried, not too slow. The monk from earlier drifts back into your imagination. You picture him ahead of you, his robe swaying as he walks without hurry. He does not glance back, does not call out, yet you feel guided by his quiet presence. It reminds you of another Zen saying, "The teacher leads without leading, the student follows without following." Perhaps the path itself is the teacher. Tonight, you notice how your senses heighten. The sound of water trickling from a hidden spring nearby, the smell of damp earth rising after the day's heat, even the sensation of cool stone pressing through your sandals. It is all part of the meditation. Your body feels lighter, as though the mountain itself is carrying part of your weight. What would happen if you lived your whole day like this? Walk step by step, not rushing to the next task, not dragging behind in regret. Would time feel slower or fuller? Would life itself begin to breathe with you? Instead of rushing past, you pause by a bend where the path opens to a sweeping view of the valley. The mist rolls in gentle waves, revealing and hiding villages below. Lantern lights flicker faintly in the distance, like tiny fireflies caught in the folds of night. For a moment you realize, those villagers down there, bustling in their homes, are part of this same stillness. The path that feels solitary is not lonely. It is woven into everything. The monk once told a story of a student who asked how long it would take to reach enlightenment. The teacher replied, 10 years. The student pressed, "What if I practice very hard?" The teacher smiled. Then 20 years. You laughed softly at the memory. Isn't that true of this walk? The more you try to rush, the further peace drifts away. The night deepens. You feel the path guiding you not to an ending, but into an endless unfolding step, breath, step. And as you continue walking, the silence around you becomes your companion, steady as the mountain itself. Section 3. The mountain path curves gently toward a clearing where a small tea house once stood. Only its stone foundation remains, moss-covered and softened by years of rain. You pause near the weathered stones, sensing the presence of many who once gathered here, sipping tea in quiet company. The space feels both empty and full, like a memory the earth itself has kept, alive. You sit upon one of the stones, and before you a monk appears with a simple teacup in his hand. He bows and pours tea until the liquid spills over the rim, dribbling onto the moss. You lean forward, puzzled, and he smiles, saying nothing. The Buddha taught that the mind, when full of its own opinions and attachments, cannot receive wisdom. The empty cup is ready. The full cup cannot take another drop. You imagine yourself as the cup. How often do you fill your mind to the brim with plans, judgments, constant noise? It leaves little room for new insights, does not it? You feel the truth of it here sometimes. Surrender means pouring out what is already inside, making space for what you cannot yet imagine. A Zen practice known as Shoshin, or beginner's mind, comes to you. It is the art of meeting each moment as if for the first time. Monks sometimes remind their students to walk through the garden as though they have never seen a flower before. Tonight, you look at the moss around the stones, and indeed it feels alive with detail you would usually miss the tiny stems. The way dew glistens like jewels under the moon. You realize how much beauty hides when your mind is too full. There is a quirky tale of a Zen master who once told his students, "If you truly want to understand emptiness, go wash your bowl." The students laughed, confused, but later found wisdom in the ordinariness of the act. Washing the bowl cleared both the dish and their minds. You picture yourself doing the same, warm water running over your hands, soap bubbles rising, the simple action making space inside you. Isn't it curious how such ordinary things hold extraordinary peace? The wind carries the scent of tea leaves, though none are brewed. You close your eyes and almost taste it, the earthy, grassy warmth of green tea, smooth and calming. Your breath becomes slow, steady, as though you are sipping air itself. What would it be like if you approached tomorrow with an empty cup, ready for whatever it brings, not clinging to yesterday's worries, not predicting the day's outcomes, but simply open? Zen masters might ask, if you emptied yourself of striving, what would remain? The question lingers, gentle yet sharp, like cool air at dawn. The Buddha's teaching of non-attachment folds into this moment. To let go is not to deny life, but to make room for it. You picture yourself setting down a heavy bag you have carried too long. Immediately, your shoulders feel lighter. The same with your thoughts when poured out. They free space for stillness, for awareness, for quiet joy. The moon slips from behind a cloud, bathing the ruined tea house in silver light. Shadows stretch across the stones, long and delicate, and you imagine monks of long ago bowing here, their robes brushing the earth. The silence is shared across centuries. Isn't it remarkable how a place can remember peace, even when its walls are gone? You run your fingers over the rim of an old stone, cool and damp. The gesture feels like touching time itself. You recall the overflowing cup, and suddenly it becomes more than a story. It is your own reminder to release. You take a breath and exhale slowly, as if pouring out whatever no longer serves. The monk who spilled the tea is gone, yet his smile remains in your memory, light and unforced. You bow to the space he left behind, grateful for the silence that teaches as deeply as words. The night around you deepens, but instead of pressing down, it opens up. The stars emerge one by one, filling the emptiness of the sky with quiet brilliance. You realize the same truth within. Emptiness is not lacking. It is spacious, ready to receive. With that, you rise again, carrying nothing, not even a cup, and step back onto the mountain path lighter than before. Section 4. The path carries you toward the edge of the forest where the trees thin, opening onto a terrace that faces the valley below. The sun has long slipped away, leaving the horizon painted with the fading embers of dusk. Lanterns glow faintly in the villages scattered across the valley floor, their lights flickering like stars that have chosen to rest on earth instead of in the sky. You pause, leaning against the smooth railing of a wooden platform, and breathe in the cool evening air. The Buddha often pointed to impermanence as a truth at the heart of all things. He said, "All conditioned things are subject to change." As you gaze upon the twilight, you see impermanence playing out before your eyes. The sky shifts color moment by moment. Amber softens to violet. Violet deepens into indigo, until even that hue begins to melt into the approaching black of night. Nothing stays. Everything flows. You remember a Zen story of a monk who, while sweeping fallen leaves in the temple courtyard, noticed the wind scattering them again and again. Instead of growing frustrated, he laughed and let the broom rest. "The leaves will fall," he said, "and I too will fall, when it is my time." His words echo now, gentle and true, as you watch leaves drift from the trees, spiraling into the valley air before disappearing into the darkness below. The lanterns remind you of the floating festivals held in Japan and Thailand, where people release paper lanterns or small boats carrying candles into rivers and skies. Each light is a prayer, a memory, or a wish. Some say the lanterns guide the spirits of ancestors. Others say they guide the living back to mindfulness. Isn't it curious that both might be true? You imagine holding a lantern, flame trembling, and releasing it into the night, knowing it will fade, yet trusting that its brief glow matters. The teaching of non-self, anatta, stirs in your mind. Just as no lantern burns forever, no self is fixed. The flame is not the paper, and the paper is not the flame. Together they create the glow, and when they part, each returns to its own nature. Could it be the same with you, your body, your thoughts, your emotions, all parts of a lantern that will one day dissolve into the night? A gust of wind brushes past, carrying with it the faint scent of smoke from distant chimneys. The air feels alive with transition. The sound of crickets rises in steady rhythm, a reminder that life continues, even as day ends. You wonder, what would happen if you welcomed impermanence instead of fearing it? Could every ending feel like the beginning of something quieter, gentler? Zen monks sometimes meditate on the flame of a candle, watching it flicker and dance until it burns out. The moment it extinguishes, they bow. They do not mourn the darkness. They honor the truth that everything ends, and that in the ending there is beauty. You imagine yourself sitting with them, eyes soft, watching a candle shrink to nothing. The final curl of smoke rises, and you feel oddly at peace. The lanterns in the valley below shimmer like a constellation scattered across the earth. Some fade behind drifting mist, others brighten briefly, then dim. Each one, a little impermanence in motion. You realize the valley itself is teaching you now, the same way the silent bell did, the same way the empty cup did. You do not need to cling to the light, for even in fading, it leaves behind the memory of its glow. A reflective question whispers through you, if impermanence is certain, why resist it? Could it be that the real suffering lies not in change itself, but in the way you try to hold on? The sky has fully deepened now, stars emerging above as the lanterns below fade into night. Two worlds mirroring one another, one vast, infinite, and enduring, the other fragile, flickering, and brief. Yet both equally beautiful, equally necessary. You lean back against the railing, exhaling slowly, letting your shoulders drop. The night has taken its shape, and you feel at home within it. The monk's laughter at falling leaves returns to you. and you find yourself smiling too. The impermanence of this moment does not diminish it. It makes it shine brighter. You turn once more toward the path, ready to keep walking, carrying the quiet glow of lanterns in your heart. Section 5. The path curves inward again, leading you to a quiet hall tucked within a grove of bamboo. Its doors are open, lanterns unlit, the interior dim and still. You step inside and find a monk seated at low dusk. Before him lies a sheet of rice paper, blank except for the faint beginning of a single brushstroke. A small pot of black ink sits nearby, its surface reflecting the candle's soft flame. You watch as he dips his brush, lifts it, and lowers it with a calm precision that feels timeless. The Buddha often taught about patience not as passive waiting, but as a living strength. He once said, "A jug fills drop by drop." As you observe the brush, you see that wisdom in action. Each stroke is careful, unhurried. The monk does not rush to complete the character. He lets it unfold at its own rhythm, the ink breathing into the paper. There is a practice in Zen called Hitsuzendo, the way of the brush. It is not just about writing characters, but about letting the brush express the state of the mind. If the mind is restless, the strokes are shaky. If the mind is clear, the strokes flow like water. Isn't it fascinating that a single line on paper can reveal the whole condition of your spirit? You recall a quirky story of a Zen master who asked his student to paint a circle each morning upon waking. At first, the circles were uneven, broken, hesitant. But after years, they became whole, flowing, effortless. When asked what changed, the student said, "Nothing but time and breathing." You smile at that. Sometimes the deepest transformation is not sudden, it is simply the slow settling of ink into paper. Day after day, the smell of ink is sharp, grounding. You hear the faint rasp of the brush across rice paper, as soft as leaves brushing one another in the wind. Each sound, each pause, feels like part of the art. You notice your own breath aligning with the monk's steady, even, unforced. It is as if the act of watching becomes its own meditation. The teaching of mindfulness returns to you here. To truly see the brush is to see everything, the weight of the bristles, the flow of ink, the tremor of a hand, the vast stillness surrounding it. All. What would happen if you treated your daily tasks, typing, cooking, even washing your face, with the same care as this monk with his brush? Would life itself start to look like art? The candle flickers, throwing shadows across the wall. For a moment, the brushstroke seems alive, like a small river meandering across the page. It is imperfect, yet beautiful in its imperfection. The Japanese idea of wabi-sabi comes to mind, the beauty of things incomplete, impermanent, imperfect. A cracked bowl, a faded scroll. Even a shaky brushstroke can hold more truth than flawless design. You feel a question tug at you. Must your life be smooth and unbroken to be meaningful, or is it the uneven lines, the unexpected pauses, that make your story uniquely yours? Zen masters might smile at this and say, "The crooked tree lives the longest, for it is never cut for timber." The monk places his brush down and bows toward the character. He does not judge it, does not seek to correct it. He simply accepts it as it is an honest reflection of the moment. You sense that same acceptance settling in your own chest, like ink soaking into paper. The room is silent, except for the brush, the breath, the faint crackle of the candle. Time feels suspended, as though the world outside has paused to honor this single act. You realize patience is not something to practice only in grand struggles. It is here, in the waiting for ink to dry, in allowing the brush to follow its own rhythm. When the monk finally lifts the paper and shows you the finished stroke, you see more than a line. You see the entire evening, the quiet hall, the bamboo swaying outside, the silence between each breath. One simple stroke carries it all. You bow in gratitude, the stillness of the moment lingering like ink that refuses to fade. With a soft heart, you step out once again into the night, carrying the lesson of patience with you along The mountain path. Section 6. The night air feels cooler as you follow the trail further down the slope. Bamboo gives way to a rushing sound. You hear water before you see it. The path opens to a river, silver under moonlight, flowing quick but not hurried, carrying twigs and leaves along its surface. A narrow wooden bridge crosses to the other side, its railings worn smooth by countless hands. You stand at the riverbank for a long moment, listening to the steady music of water against stone. The Buddha once compared life itself to a river. He said that just as no one can step into the same water twice, no moment ever repeats. The flow is constant, unstoppable, and yet strangely comforting. Watching it now, you realize how much of your own life has been carried here, memories, joys, even worries, all swept along by time. Zen monks sometimes practice crossing rivers barefoot, feeling the water swirl around their legs, steadying themselves step by step on slippery rocks. It is more than just a crossing. It is a teaching about trust and balance. You imagine yourself joining them, the cold water pressing against your skin, each step uncertain yet guided by patience. Isn't it curious that the harder you fight the current, the more likely you are to stumble, but when you relax, the water carries you safely through? A story drifts into memory. Two monks once came upon a river where a woman stood, unable to cross. One monk lifted her onto his shoulders and carried her across. Hours later, the other monk scolded him. "We are monks. We should not touch women." The first monk simply replied, "Brother, I set her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" You feel the weight of that lesson. The burdens we carry in our minds are often heavier than the ones our bodies bear. You step onto the bridge. It creaks beneath your weight, but it holds steady. The boards feel cool and smooth under your sandals, the scent of damp wood rising with each step. Halfway across, you pause to look down. The river glimmers like strands of silk unraveling under the moon. You breathe with its rhythm, your chest rising and falling as though in time with the current. The Buddhist teaching of letting go surfaces here. Just as the river releases each leaf, so too must you release what you no longer need to carry. You picture yourself placing your worries into the stream, small paper boats set afloat. They drift, spin, then vanish into the night. What would it feel like if you truly let them go, if you trusted the water to carry them away, never to return? On the far bank, tall grasses sway in the wind, whispering like an unseen choir. Their voices blend with the river's song, weaving a lullaby of earth and water. For a moment, you sense that everything is flowing together, you, the river, the grasses, the stars above. No separation, no edge where one ends and the other begins. A quirky Zen practice comes to mind. In some monasteries, monks meditate while listening to the sound of water for hours, sometimes even days. They say that if you listen long enough, you can hear the river asking you questions. Tonight you wonder, if the river could speak, what would it ask of you? Perhaps it would whisper, "Why hold the stone when you can flow like me?" The bridge carries you to the far side, and as your foot touches solid earth, you feel lighter, as though something truly has been set down behind you. The lesson of the river lingers not just to cross it, but to learn from its flow. You glance back once more. The water rushes on, not looking back, not clinging to its banks. You smile at the thought, maybe that is the quiet strength of life itself. To keep moving, steady, patient, and free. The grasses part, opening the next stretch of the path, and you step forward, carrying the sound of the river within you like a secret song. Section 7. The path winds upward again, carrying you into a grove of towering pine trees. Their trunks rise like ancient pillars, bark thick and ridged with age, needles whispering in the night wind. The scent of resin is strong here, sharp and grounding, as if the earth itself is breathing deeply. You pause beneath one particularly old pine, its roots twisted and sprawling across the ground, like the veins of the mountain itself. The Buddha once taught about stability through the practice of mindfulness. He said, "As a mountain is unmoved by the wind, so too the wise remain unmoved by praise or blame." Standing before this pine, you understand the teaching. No matter how fiercely the wind blows, the tree bends but does not break. Its strength lies not in rigidity, but in its rootedness. There is an old Zen tale of a monk who sat every day beneath a pine, seeking to learn from its stillness. One evening, a storm swept through the valley, and while other trees cracked, the pine bent gracefully and survived. The monk whispered to himself, "To endure, one must learn the art of yielding." Isn't it strange how resilience is less about resisting and more about allowing? You sit at the base of the old pine, leaning against its trunk. The bark is rough against your back, yet comforting, like the embrace of a wise elder. Above, the branches creak and sway, their songs steady and low. You close your eyes and feel your breath sink with the tree's rhythm, deep, slow, timeless. A quirky Zen practice comes to mind. Some monks once meditated by staring at trees for hours, not analyzing, not naming, simply gazing. They called it becoming tree. When asked what they learned, one monk smiled and said, "The tree taught me to stop hurrying." You imagine yourself doing the same now, letting the pine's calm seep into your bones. What would it be like if you lived with such patience, growing slowly yet surely, season by season? The teaching of impermanence returns here too. Pines may live for hundreds of years, but even they will one day fall, returning to the soil that fed them. Yet in their fall, they nourish new life fungi, moss, seedlings. You reflect, could it be that even your endings might be beginnings for someone else? The night deepens, and the stars shimmer through the gaps in the branches. The needles sway softly, scattering moonlight in shifting patterns across the forest floor. It feels like the pine is painting with light, creating a canvas that changes with every breeze. You marvel at the thought. Stillness and movement are not opposites here, they are companions. What would it mean if you, too, rooted yourself deeply yet swayed with life's winds? Could balance be as simple as holding firm at the center while letting the edges move freely? The old pine hums quietly in your imagination. You sense it has stood witness to countless winters and summers, storms and calms, monks and wanderers. Its silence is not empty. It is filled with the memory. You place your palm against the bark and feel a pulse, faint yet steady, as though time itself beats through the tree. The wind rustles the needles above, a sound like 1,000 soft whispers blending into one. You listen, and in the whispering you hear not words, but a teaching. Endure by yielding, grow by standing still, and give even in falling. When you rise again, the pine remains, vast and steady. You bow to it, grateful for its lesson, and step back onto the path. The night feels calmer now, as if the forest itself has drawn you into its quiet strength. The pine stands behind you, its roots holding the mountain, its branches stretching toward the sky, a reminder of what it means to live deeply grounded and endlessly open. Section 8. The path narrows until it spills into a walled garden, tucked away like a secret sanctuary. A stone gate frames the entrance, and as you step through, you feel an immediate hush settle over you. The air is cooler here, touched by the damp fragrance of night blossoms. Lanterns hang unlit along the garden's edges, leaving the moon as the only illumination. Its silver glow pours across raked gravel, sculpted shrubs, and smooth stepping stones that lead deeper inside. The Buddha often taught about awareness, not the strained effort of watching, but the gentle presence of simply being. He compared it to a lamp that quietly reveals what is already there. Tonight, the moonlight serves as that lamp. It illuminates without grasping, softens without demanding, As you walk the stepping stones, each footfall becomes slower, more tender, as though you are afraid to disturb the stillness woven into the night. In the center of the garden lies a pond, its surface so still it mirrors the sky. The moon rests perfectly upon it, an unbroken circle of light. You kneel beside the water and dip your fingers in. Ripples spread outward, distorting the moon into wavering shapes, then slowly fading back to stillness. You watch with quiet fascination. Isn't this just like the mind, disturbed by thought, clear again with rest? Zen monks often sit in gardens like this during moonlit nights, practicing moon-gazing meditation. They rest their eyes on the glowing orb, letting thoughts dissolve into its brightness. Some say that if you stare long enough, the boundary between self and moon disappears. You wonder if you lost the sense of where you end and the night sky begins. What would remain? Perhaps only awareness itself, vast and calm. You recall a quirky story of a Zen master who was asked by a thief for something to steal. The master looked around his empty hut and finally pointed to the moon outside. "Take that," he said with a smile. Of course, the thief could not. But the lesson remains: the greatest treasures cannot be owned. Tonight, as you sit in the garden, you feel the same truth. Beauty deepens when you stop trying to hold it. The fragrance of night-blooming flowers drifts toward you. The blossoms are pale, almost translucent under the moon. Their scent is delicate, fleeting, yet it lingers just long enough to remind you of impermanence. The teaching returns again: nothing lasts, yet everything matters. The flower does not resist its short life. It simply blooms in its time and withers when ready. Could you meet your own life with such ease? The pond reflects not only the moon, but also the shadows of pine branches leaning across the wall. The image shifts slightly with the night breeze. You realize the garden is not silent at all. It hums softly with life. Crickets sing, leaves rustle, water laps gently against stone. It is a chorus too subtle for daylight, revealed only to those who slow down enough to hear it. What would happen if you treated each night as a teacher? Could the darkness itself be a kind of scripture, reminding you to rest, to soften, to surrender? Zen masters might ask, if the moon can shine without effort, why do you strain so hard to glow? You lie back on the grass, letting the cool earth support you. The stars scatter across the sky, countless and ancient, while the moon holds steady above. Time feels different here, expanded, unhurried, infinite. You inhale slowly, your chest rising with the rhythm of the garden, and exhale as if your breath itself is part of the night air. The lesson of awareness lingers: to simply see, to simply be. No need to chase the moon, no need to clutch its silence. Just as the bell rang without sound, just as the pine stood without words, so too does the moonlit garden invite you to rest without effort. And now, as the night deepens, your body softens. Your eyes grow heavier, your breathing slower, your thoughts gentler. The path behind you, the silent bell, the mountain walk, the empty teacup, the lanterns, the brushstroke, the river, the pine, all merge into one seamless flow. You realize they were never separate stories at all, but one long teaching whispered across the mountain. As your breath slows, feel every worry slip away. Like leaves floating down a quiet stream, peace is here, always has been. Let your body grow heavy, sinking into the earth's gentle embrace. The moon will keep watch, the garden will keep its silence, and the night will carry you softly into rest. Sleep is not the end of the path tonight. It is the next step, another form of awareness. Trust it, welcome it, let it hold you. Story 2, Zen Stories for Sleep. The Gate Without a Key. Classic Koans for Quiet Nights. Section 1. Hey guys, tonight we are going to explore some timeless Zen stories that have helped people find peace and relaxation for centuries. If your mind's been racing all day, these tales might gently pull you back to the stillness waiting within. You can imagine yourself walking toward an ancient wooden gate, weathered by time, its hinges slightly askew, its wood grooved with countless hands that once pushed it open. Yet when you arrive, you notice there is no lock, no keyhole, nothing to keep you from stepping through. The gate is already open, though it looks closed. In our busy lives, it is easy to forget that calm is not out there. It is already yours to uncover. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I would love to know, where are you listening from tonight? And what time is it where you are? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let us ease into tonight's journey together. You place your hand on the wooden gate. Its surface feels cool and textured, worn smooth in some places, and rough in others. As you push, it swings soundlessly, and you realize the koan before you is not about entering, but about noticing. The Buddha taught that liberation is not found by grasping, but by awakening to what is already present. The gate without a key is exactly this. It shows you that nothing is holding you back except the thought that something is missing. In Zen, there is a collection of koans known as the Gateless Gate, or Mumonkan. Paradoxical, is not it? A gate that has no barrier, no key, yet students spend lifetimes standing before it. Koans like this are not puzzles to be solved. They are invitations to step into a new way of seeing. Tonight, as you imagine the gate creaking open, you feel that same invitation stirring inside you. You recall a quirky practice. Some Zen monks kept staring at a blank wall for hours, even days, letting their thoughts knock like restless visitors. Eventually, the monks would realize the wall was never closed to them. It had been open all along. You smile at the strangeness of it, yet it mirrors the gate. There is no key, because there is no lock. The air beyond the gate is soft and scented with pine. A lantern flickers faintly on the path, though it gives more shadow than light. You step forward and hear gravel crunch beneath your sandals. Isn't it funny how such simple sounds can feel grounding, like reminders that you are exactly where you need to be? What would happen if you stopped searching for the key to your life, stopped waiting for the right time, the right answer, the right version of yourself, and simply walked through the gate as you are? Now, Zen masters might ask, is the barrier real, or is it only in your mind? The Buddha's teaching of non-clinging unfolds here. To cling to the idea of a locked gate is to suffer needlessly. To see that there is no lock, and never was, is to be free. You laugh softly at the thought, the kind of laugh that comes when you realize you have been carrying a heavy bag all day that was never yours to hold. The night air brushes against your skin, cool and refreshing. You hear the wind rustling the leaves outside nature's own lullaby, is not it? The gate swings slightly behind you, making no sound. It does not matter whether you leave it open or closed. The truth is the same. There was never a key. You continue along the path, the koan settling into you not as an answer, but as a presence. Like a gentle riddle whispered by the night, it follows you, asking not for solving, but for living. And so you walk on, the lesson of the gateless gate, carried within your breath, step after step, deeper into the quiet valley of Zen. Section 2. You walk deeper into the valley path, the silence folding around you like a robe. Soon, you reach a small clearing, where a monk sits cross-legged on a low cushion. His robe is simple, his gaze clear but gentle. A stray dog lies at his feet, tail curled over its nose, sleeping peacefully. You sit across from him, feeling the night deepen around you. The Buddha often taught that all beings share the same nature, no matter how different they appear. He said, all beings have the potential for awakening. Yet here, in this quiet clearing, you recall one of the most famous koans of all time. A monk once asked Master Joshu, "Does a dog have Buddha nature?" Joshu replied with a single word, "Mu, mu." Just 2 letters, a sound as simple as a sigh. It means no, but also more than no. Not exactly denial, not exactly refusal, but a cutting through the question itself. Imagine waiting for a great explanation and receiving instead the emptiness of a single syllable. You can almost hear the word now, carried on the night air, mu. There is a quirky Zen practice around this koan. Students are told to meditate on mu endlessly, repeating it with their breath, sleeping with it in their minds, waking with it on their lips. At first, it feels frustrating, like chewing on a seed that will not crack. But slowly, the sound itself dissolves, and what remains is not an answer but a doorway. The stray dog at Joshu's feet shifts and sighs in its sleep. You can almost smile at the irony here is the very creature of the question, unaware of the great burden it carried into Zen history. Does the dog have Buddha nature? The dog does not worry about it. The dog simply dreams. Perhaps that is the hidden teaching. The Buddha taught that questions often hide clinging. When we demand yes or no, we cling to categories, to certainty. Joshu's mu cuts through both, leaving you with neither side to hold on to. What would happen if you stopped clinging to answers and simply sat in the openness of not knowing, Zen masters might say? In that space, awakening itself waits quietly. You feel your breath deepen. Inhale, mu. Exhale, mu. The syllable becomes softer each time, like a wave folding back into the sea. Soon it does not feel like a word at all. Just a soundless pause, an opening. Isn't it strange how even no can carry you toward yes when seen through silence? The dog stretches, opening its jaws in a yawn, then curls back down into stillness. You watch it with affection. Its simple life is already a sermon. Eat when hungry, rest when tired, bark when moved to. Could it be that enlightenment is less about gaining something and more about returning to such naturalness? You remember the gate you passed through earlier, the one without a key? Now you see how Joshu's mu is another kind of gate, seemingly closed, but already open. There is nothing to unlock, only to step beyond. The monk across from you finally speaks, his voice soft as falling leaves. Do not think of mu as answer or denial. Think of it as a mirror. Look into it, and you will see not the dog, but yourself. You bow gently, and the night seems to bow back. Somewhere an owl calls across the valley, its voice low and steady. The clearing grows quieter, the air cooler, and the koan lingers in your mind like a lantern that lights without flame. As you rise and continue along the path, you carry Joshu's word with you not as a burden to solve, but as a companion to walk beside. Mu follows you like the echo of your own breath, reminding you that sometimes the greatest clarity comes not from yes or no, but from stepping beyond the question entirely. Section 3. The path slopes downward, and the night air grows softer, almost musical with the sounds of insects and distant water. You come to a wooden platform beneath a slanted roof, open on all sides to the mountain breeze. Inside, a single monk stands with his hands lifted, palms together, one hand opening slowly to clap against the other. Yet no sound follows. His movements are steady, deliberate, and strangely mesmerizing. The Buddha once taught that truth is not always found in what is visible, but also in what cannot be grasped. He reminded his students that clinging to form blinds us to the formless. Watching the monk now, you recall one of Zen's most curious koans. What is the sound of one hand clapping? It seems absurd at first. You might even chuckle quietly. After all, clapping requires two hands, does not it? But in Zen, absurdity is the point it shakes you awake. Nudging your mind out of its usual grooves, you try lifting your own hand, moving it through the air, listening not for a sound, but for the space that follows. Isn't it strange how silence itself begins to hum when you truly pay attention? Some Zen students were instructed to meditate on this koan for years, returning to their teachers again and again, with answers some clever, some poetic, some desperate. Most were dismissed with a shake of the head, The master might say, "No, not yet," sending them back into the silence. The practice was not about reaching the right answer. It was about dissolving the hunger for an answer at all. You feel the air brush against your raised hand, cool and invisible, like a whisper of the unseen. Could it be that the sound of one hand is not a sound at all, but the awareness of movement, the quiet presence behind action? What would happen if you stopped demanding a result from every effort and simply rested in the act itself? A quirky Zen anecdote comes to mind. A student once declared, "The sound of one hand is silence." The master struck the floor with his staff and replied, "Then whose silence is it?" You smile at the paradox. Isn't it playful how Zen refuses to let you settle, always tugging you deeper into mystery? You close your eyes and listen. Beyond the insects, beyond the water, beyond even your breath, you notice something subtler, a kind of ringing in the quiet, as though the silence itself is alive. You wonder, could this be the sound the koan points to, not made by hands, but discovered in the space where sound should be? The Buddha's teaching of emptiness arises here. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. A hand without a partner seems empty, yet in its emptiness it reveals a fullness of awareness. You recall the silent bell from before, how its lack of sound rang more deeply than any struck note. Here, too, the absence hums with presence. The monk lowers his hand and bows toward you, as though sharing a secret only silence can carry. The lantern above flickers, then steadies, casting long shadows that dance across the wooden floor. For a moment, you feel that the question itself, one hand clapping, has become less important than the quiet it created inside you. What if your own life carried this same teaching? If, instead of chasing applause or recognition, you found peace in the quiet movement of your own hand through space? Could that be enough? Zen masters might whisper. It already is. You stand again, your hands still tingling faintly from the air's touch. The path waits beyond the platform, and as you step back into the night, the insects resume their chorus. Yet beneath it all, the silence lingers, carrying with it the faint, mysterious sound of one hand. Section 4. The night deepens as you follow the path into a grove of willows. Their long branches sway like curtains, brushing against your shoulders as you pass. The air here feels different, thicker, almost hushed, as though the trees themselves are keeping a secret. You step into a small clearing and find a stone bench waiting, worn smooth by years of weather. A monk sits nearby, his gaze turned inward, quiet as stone. He lifts his eyes to you and speaks a koan that seems to hang in the air. Seijo's soul is separated from her being, which is the true self. You pause, unsure how to hold this riddle. The Buddha often spoke of non-self, teaching that what we call I is not solid but made of parts, body, feelings, perceptions, thoughts, all flowing, all changing. He said that clinging to a fixed self is the root of suffering. Sitting here, the teaching takes form. If Seijo's soul is apart from Seijo, then what remains? A breeze stirs the willow branches, and you hear them sighing together like a soft choir. Their movements remind you of the mind itself, swaying between identities, sometimes calm, sometimes restless. A quirky Zen story comes to mind. A monk once asked his master, "Who am I?" The master simply replied, "When you are hungry, eat. When you are tired, sleep." Perhaps identity is not something to solve, but something to dissolve. You close your eyes and ask quietly, if your soul were to step aside, who would remain sitting on this bench? Would it be your breath, your heartbeat, the awareness of the willow leaves brushing? Your skin, Zen masters might ask, is the self what observes, or what is observed? The silence deepens around you. You hear the distant hoot of an owl, its call echoing through the valley. The sound feels both outside and inside at once, as if reminding you that boundaries blur when you listen deeply. Isn't it curious how even the owl's voice seems to ask the same question? What part of you hears and what part of you is heard? The monk at your side begins to hum a low note, steady and deep. The sound vibrates through the clearing, and you realize you are both vibrating too, in breath and body. For a moment, the separation between self and soul, sound and silence begins to soften. You and the night are not two. The Buddha's teaching of interdependence arises. Nothing exists alone. The soul, the body, the sound, the silence all weave together, like the willow branches overhead. Try to separate them, and they lose their meaning. Keep them together, and they flow as one. You run your hand across the stone bench, cool and slightly damp. The touch grounds you, yet also makes you wonder, is this hand you, or is it just movement, sensation, awareness flowing through? The koan lingers, not as confusion, but as a gentle doorway. Seijo's soul is separated, so what remains? The monk opens his eyes and smiles faintly, not offering an answer. Instead, he lets the question itself rest in the air, like moonlight on the pond. You feel the teaching in your chest. Perhaps the true self is not something to find, but the quiet space left when searching ends. You bow toward the monk and rise, the willows parting as you step back onto the path. Their branches brush you again, softer this time, as though giving a blessing. The night carries you forward, the koan of self, and no self still glowing within you like an ember that does not fade. Section 5. The path winds toward a temple courtyard, dimly lit by a single lantern hanging from a wooden beam. Its glow casts long shadows across gravel that has been carefully raked into spirals and lines, patterns so delicate you hesitate to disturb them with your footsteps. In the center of the courtyard stands an oak tree, tall and silent, its branches spread wide as though embracing the night sky. You remember the Buddha's teaching on the middle way that truth is not found in extremes, but in the simplicity of balance. Tonight, that teaching seems to echo in this tree. The oak does not try to be anything but itself. It does not strain to reach the stars, nor does it shrink from the ground. It simply stands, rooted and open. A well-known koan arises here. A monk once asked Master Joshu, "What is the meaning of Bodhidharmas coming from the west?" Joshu replied, "The oak tree in the garden." At first, the student was baffled. How could a tree answer such a question? Yet as you gaze at the oak before you, the koan begins to stir in you. Perhaps the answer is not hidden in philosophy, or far off scriptures. It is, right here, in the ordinary, in what stands before you. Zen monks often meditated in gardens like this, not seeking visions or miracles, but watching trees, stones, even falling leaves. A quirky story tells of a monk who stared at a cherry blossom for so long that, when asked what enlightenment felt like, he simply pointed to the blossom. Could it be that awakening is not about discovering something new, but about noticing what has always been present? The oak's bark is rough under your fingers, grooves winding like rivers carved by time. You lean close, inhaling the faint earthy scent rising from its roots. Every detail feels alive with presence. You wonder, what if every step you take, every object you touch, every breath you draw, is itself a teaching? Would you need any other answers? The wind stirs, and the branches creak softly. Leaves rustle like whispers, but not in words you can grasp. Still, you feel understood. Isn't it curious how nature seems to speak without language, teaching in silence what books can only hint at? The Buddha's teaching of mindfulness echoes here again. He said, "In the seen, there is only the seen. In the heard, only the heard." The oak tree in the garden is not a symbol. It is the tree itself. To see it without layering meaning upon it is to meet truth directly. You stand still, letting the lantern's glow soften around you, the oak towering in its quiet strength. What would it mean if you stopped searching for enlightenment in distant places and instead bowed to the ordinary tree in your own garden, Zen masters might smile and say, "When you do, you will find the West has already arrived." The night grows cooler. A breeze scatters a few leaves across the raked gravel, altering the careful patterns. You watch them fall without regret, realizing the beauty of the garden is not in its perfection, but in its changing form. The oak sways gently, as if acknowledging this truth. You bow toward the tree, gratitude rising in your chest. The oak does not answer, does not move beyond its natural sway, yet its presence feels like a koan resolved without words. You step quietly back onto the path, carrying the simplicity of the oak with you, a reminder that sometimes the deepest wisdom is simply to stand where you are and be. Section 6. The gravel path leads you down into a hollow where the air feels damp, heavy with the scent of earth and moss. A ruined stone pagoda tilts at the edge of the clearing, its surface carved with faded symbols nearly erased by centuries of wind and rain. Beside it, a circle of monks once gathered, or so the place suggests. It holds a weight of memory. You settle onto a flat stone, and the night wraps itself around you like a thick robe. The Buddha taught often of cause and effect, of karma not as punishment or reward, but as the natural unfolding of actions and consequences. Tonight, that teaching comes alive through one of Zen's strangest koans, Hyakujo's fox. The story goes that whenever Master Hyakugo gave his evening talks, an old man would stand at the edge of the hall, listening quietly. One day, the man confessed, "In a past life, I was a Zen master. A student asked me if an enlightened person is bound by the law of cause and effect. I answered no, because of that answer. I was reborn for 500 lives as a fox. Please, master, release me." Hyakujo replied, "An enlightened person does not ignore cause and effect." With that, the old man bowed and vanished, leaving behind the body of a fox. You imagine the clearing filled with foxfire, glowing blue and white in the night grass. The story is strange, even eerie, but it carries a quiet power. You hear the Buddha's teaching within it. No one escapes the web of life. Even awakening does not lift you beyond the ripple of actions. It only teaches you to see the ripples clearly. A quirky Zen practice echoes here. Some monks would meditate while listening to foxes howl in the night, treating their cries as sutras. They believed the fox's call was the voice of karma itself, reminding them of unseen connections. Isn't it curious how even an animal's cry could be turned into scripture if only you listen differently? The wind stirs the grass, and for a moment you think you hear a faint rustling, as if a fox were circling just beyond the lantern's glow. The sound is not frightening. It is steady, rhythmic, almost like breath. You wonder how many choices from your own past still ripple outward, unseen. What actions, small or large, carry your voice into the lives of others? Just as the fox's call carries across the valley, the Buddha's teaching on compassion arises here. To understand cause and effect is not to fear it, but to treat each action with care, as though planting seeds that will one day bloom. You recall the old man's question whether the enlightened escaped karma, and realize that freedom is not escape but harmony. The fox was bound not because of karma, but because of misunderstanding. You place your hand on the stone beside you, its surface cold and wet. The sensation anchors you, reminding you that even this simple gesture will ripple into memory. Isn't it strange how something as small as a touch can shape the moment so fully? The clearing feels alive now, the ruined pagoda, the whisper of grass, the imagined fox just out of sight. You sense that everything is woven together, past and present. Action and echo, question and answer. The monk within your memory, the one who carried the silent bell, the one who crossed rivers would smile here, perhaps reminding you that karma is not a trap but a dance. Every step matters, every gesture carries weight, but none of it need feel heavy when done with awareness. As you rise to leave, the The clearing grows still again. The faint rustle vanishes, the night returns to its soft hum. Yet the koan lingers, etched into you like the fading symbols on the pagoda. An enlightened person does not ignore cause and effect. You step back onto the path, your heart lighter, your strides slower, as though each step now carries the careful grace of planting seeds in the dark. Section 7. The path bends sharply, leading you to a broad courtyard paved with worn stones. Moonlight pours into the open space, pale and cold, casting long shadows from the surrounding wooden halls. At the center, a group of monks once stood, though tonight the courtyard is empty, except for the faint memory of a sharp and startling koan. Nansen cuts the cat. The Buddha's teachings on attachment come to mind here. He said that clinging to what we love brings suffering, just as much as clinging to what we fear. To let go is to free the heart. Yet this koan does not whisper softly. It shocks, unsettles, and in doing so, it tests the very roots of attachment. The story is brief but heavy. Monks from 2 different halls were quarreling over a temple cat, each claiming ownership. Their voices grew heated, their arguments tangled. Nansen, the abbot, appeared and held up the cat. "If any of you can say a true word," he declared, "the cat will be spared." The monks stood silent. No answer came. Nansen, in one swift motion, cut the cat in 2. Later, when his disciple Joshu returned, he heard what happened. Without a word, Joshu placed his sandals on his head and walked away. Nansen said, "If you had been there, you would have saved the cat." You stand in the empty courtyard and feel the weight of silence that must have followed. The story is disturbing, unsettling even, but perhaps that is why it endures. Zen does not always soothe. Sometimes it shakes you awake. Some monks treated this koan as a mirror. They sat with it for years, not to justify or condemn, but to see what stirred inside when they heard it. A quirky tale tells of a monk who, every time he thought of the cat, simply meowed softly to himself and smiled. Perhaps he found humor in the paradox. Perhaps he found freedom. You let the scene play in your mind. The quarrel over ownership, the silence when truth was demanded, the sandals raised to the head. What would you have done? Would you have spoken, stayed silent, or turned the act into a gesture beyond words? Zen masters might say, the point is not to find the right move, but to see how attachment blinds us in the moment. The Buddha taught that all beings long for freedom, yet our hands so often grasp. The monks clung to possession of the cat. In their silence, the teaching came through no true word, no release. Joshu's sandals on his head were not an answer but a breaking of the frame, a step outside of logic, beyond right and wrong. The wind crosses the courtyard, carrying with it the faint rustle of bamboo. You feel your chest tighten at the story, yet also expand, as though holding both grief and clarity at once. Isn't it strange how even a troubling tale can invite peace if you let it point you inward? You crouch and run your fingers along the cold stones beneath you. They feel unyielding, yet they carry the memory of countless steps, countless debates, countless silences. Perhaps they too have absorbed the lesson attachment binds, and only the letting go saves. The courtyard grows very still. You imagine Joshu walking away, sandals wobbling on his head, the moon shining down just as it does now. Was it foolish? Was it wise? Or was it simply free? You breathe deeply, letting the question linger, not rushing for resolution. The story, like the cut itself, divides your thoughts, but also opens them. You rise, bow faintly to the silent courtyard, and step once more toward the winding path, carrying the unsettling koan as gently as one might carry a fragile lantern in the dark. Section 8. The night path carries you into a smaller, more intimate chamber, wooden walls, sliding open to reveal tatami mats, and a low table set with a simple tea service. The scent of roasted leaves drifts in, the air, warm and earthy, mingling with the cool night breeze. A single candle flickers nearby, its light soft and steady. You settle onto a cushion, and soon a monk enters, bowing silently before pouring tea into a delicate porcelain cup. The Buddha often spoke of beginner's mind, reminding his followers that wisdom arises when the heart is open and uncluttered. He once said that in order to see truth clearly, we must let go of the notion that we already understand. Sitting here, cup in hand, you feel the teaching settle over you like steam rising from the tea. A familiar koan comes to life in this moment. A scholar visited a Zen master, eager to discuss philosophy. The master poured tea into the scholar's cup until it overflowed, spilling onto the floor. The scholar protested. "It is full. No more will go in," the master replied. "Like this cup, your mind is already full. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty it?" You watch the steam swirl from your cup, rising in elegant shapes, before fading into the air. The warmth seeps through the porcelain into your palms, grounding you. Isn't it remarkable how something so simple can feel like a universe of teaching? Just holding the cup, you feel present, awake, alive. A quirky Zen practice drifts into your memory. Some monks would spend entire afternoons drinking tea in silence, regarding each sip as a meditation. They would listen to the water as it poured, watch the leaves swirl, taste the subtle bitterness on the tongue. Nothing rushed, nothing wasted. They called it tea mind. You smile at the thought, an entire practice born of something so ordinary. You take a sip. The tea is earthy, slightly bitter, yet soothing. Its heat spreads through you, calming and steadying, as if each sip were a small bow to the present moment. What would happen if you lived each day like this cup of tea, empty enough to receive, patient enough to cool, warm enough to nourish, Zen masters might say. Enlightenment is nothing more than drinking when thirsty. The Buddha's teaching of mindfulness returns here. He reminded his followers that liberation is not hidden in far-off places, but found in every breath, every taste, every step. This tea, this moment, is itself the path. You set the cup down gently, watching the ripples still within. The monk across from you bows once more, his eyes kind, his silence more eloquent than any sermon. The candle flickers low, shadows bending across the walls like brushstrokes on paper. Your body feels heavier now, softened by the warmth of tea and the gentle rhythm of the night. Your eyes grow slower to blink, your breath longer and deeper. The koans you have carried the gate without a key, the sound of one hand, the oak tree, the fox, the cat, all seem to dissolve into this single, simple act, resting with a cup of tea. And now, as your body eases into stillness, the narrative itself slows. The path does not end, but it softens, like a stream widening into a quiet lake. Every koan has been a lantern, and now their glow merges into one calm light. As your breath slows, feel every worry slip away. Like leaves floating down a quiet stream, peace is here, always has been. Let the weight of the day melt from your shoulders, your thoughts drifting like steam that rises and vanishes. The night holds you gently, the garden of Zen stories closing like a soft embrace. The tea cools, the candle fades, but you remain cradled in stillness. Sleep begins to wrap around you like a warm robe, effortless, tender. There is nothing to solve. Nothing to chase, nothing to hold, just breath, just silence, just rest. Story 3. Buddhist Teachings for Relaxation. The Forest Monks of Thailand. Lessons in Simplicity. Section 1. Hey guys, tonight we are going to explore some timeless Zen stories that have helped people find peace and relaxation for centuries. If your mind's been racing all day, these tales might gently pull you back to the stillness waiting within. Imagine yourself stepping into a forest at dusk, where the air is thick with the scent of earth, and the steady hum of insects. The tall trees stretch endlessly toward the sky, their roots tangled and firm in the soil, and each step you take carries you deeper into the embrace of nature. In our busy lives, it is easy to forget that calm is not out there. It is already yours to uncover. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I would love to know, where are you listening from tonight? And what time is it where you are? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let us ease into tonight's journey together. You step deeper into the Thai jungle, where forest monks have lived for centuries. Their way of life is simple, pared down to essentials, guided by the teachings of the Buddha. The path beneath your feet is uneven, scattered with leaves and stones. You hear the crackle of dry bamboo snapping somewhere in the distance, the soft cry of a bird returning to its nest. Every sound feels vivid, alive, reminding you that this forest is both a home and a teacher. The Buddha once taught that simplicity is a path to freedom. He reminded his disciples that clinging to possessions only adds weight to the heart. In the forest, this teaching is not an idea, it is survival. A monk carries only robes, a bowl, a few small tools. By living with so little, he learns to rest in abundance that cannot be bought. Birdsong at dawn, rain tapping on the roof, wind weaving through the leaves. You remember a quirky story told about Ajahn Mun, a great Thai forest master. He wandered barefoot through jungles filled with tigers, snakes, and uncertainty. Yet he laughed often, saying that fear itself was the best teacher. When you sit still with fear, he once explained, you find that fear is only another thought. You let that sink in, the idea that even in the middle of a wild jungle, peace is possible, because peace is not in the place, but in the heart. The trees creak above you, their branches rubbing against each other, producing a low, haunting tone. Instead of frightening you, the sound feels like an old chant, as if the forest itself were reciting a sutra. You wonder, what would happen if you listened to your own life this way, hearing every noise not as disturbance, but as part of the great chant of being alive? The forest monks often wander without fixed homes, carrying their bowls and sleeping beneath trees. They learn to befriend solitude, to eat whatever is given, to rest wherever the earth allows. You picture them sitting cross-legged on the ground at dusk, eyes half closed, listening to cicadas swell and fade like ocean waves. Their calm presence seems to seep into you, reminding you that silence is not empty. It is full of listening. The Buddha's teaching of impermanence floats into your mind. He said, all conditioned things are subject to change. Here, in the forest, impermanence is visible everywhere. Leaves fall, rivers rise and recede, animals call out and then vanish into silence. Even your own steps are here one moment and gone the next. Instead of sadness, this truth feels freeing. Nothing clings, and so everything flows. You notice the way the air shifts, cooler now as night deepens. The forest hums with crickets, and above you the sky is slowly revealing stars between the canopy of leaves. You sit down on a flat rock, close your eyes, and let the sounds wash over you. Isn't it curious how the world feels more alive when you stop trying to control it? The monks who choose this life often say that the forest is the true teacher. Tigers test courage, storms test patience, hunger tests humility. And yet within these challenges, the heart learns to open. You imagine yourself here, barefoot, holding only a small bowl, realizing how little you need. Perhaps you even feel lighter, freer. The forest quiets for a moment, as though holding its breath, and then releases it in a rush of wind through the branches. You smile softly, realizing that the gate to peace has been open all along. You only had to step into the trees to see it. Section 2. The forest is still heavy with night when the first pale line of dawn appears on the horizon. You stir from your resting place beneath a tall tree and notice a faint glow rising over the canopy. The air is cool, almost damp, carrying the scent of wet leaves and earth. Somewhere, a rooster crows, faint but insistent, echoing from a distant village. Soon the forest monks will begin their alms round, and you imagine yourself joining them. The Buddha taught that giving and receiving sustained the path. He reminded his disciples that monks live not through work or wealth, but through the generosity of others. In return, monks offer their presence, their teaching, and their example of simplicity. The alms round is more than a way to gather food. It is a bond between those who practice and those who support. You rise and walk barefoot along a narrow dirt trail, following the imagined line of monks. Their robes are the color of saffron, soft and flowing. Each one holds a simple bowl, empty but ready. The sound of their steps is hushed, steady, like rain tapping against the earth. No one speaks. Their silence feels like a chant of gratitude that does not need words. A quirky detail about forest monks comes to mind. Many of them walk barefoot, no matter the terrain: hot asphalt in villages, sharp gravel, even muddy trails in the jungle. They say the earth itself becomes a teacher when your feet touch it directly. Isn't it curious how something as ordinary as walking can turn into meditation when done with full awareness? You place your own feet on the ground, noticing the cool dew seeping between your toes, the slight sting of pebbles. Each sensation feels alive, grounding you in the present. The village slowly wakes. Children peek from windows. Women carry baskets of rice. Men tend to morning fires. The monks walk silently into the heart of it all, their bowls steady in their arms. One by one, villagers approach, placing spoonfuls of food into the bowls: sticky rice, vegetables, fruit. Each gift is given with bowed heads, palms pressed together. Each monk bows in return. Nothing is said, but the exchange feels full of meaning. You remember the Buddha's teaching of interdependence. All beings rely on one another. Here it becomes visible the monks depend on the villagers for nourishment. The villagers depend on the monks for spiritual guidance. Neither is above the other. Both are part of a cycle of generosity. What would happen if you looked at your own life this way? Not as independence, but as shared support. The smell of wood smoke drifts across the morning air. A dog trots past, wagging its tail, and for a moment you feel the entire village awakening as one body: the fires, the laughter of children, the bowed heads of monks, the rustling trees overhead. Isn't it beautiful how ordinary life can feel sacred when touched by awareness? A story comes to you of a Thai forest monk who once walked his alms round through a flooded village. The water reached his knees, but he continued barefoot, holding his bowl above the surface. Villagers waded to him, still offering rice, still bowing. Later he smiled and said, "Whether the path is dry or wet, generosity floats." You picture yourself carrying a bowl, not just for food, but for the gifts of each moment. What if every breath you took was like a spoonful of rice, offered freely by the world? The Zen masters might ask, are you willing to receive what is already given? The monks complete their round and begin their walk back into the forest. Their bowls are heavier now, but their steps remain light. You follow them into the trees, listening to the soft rhythm of bare feet on soil, carrying with you the quiet joy of simplicity. The sun has risen higher, casting golden light through the leaves. The forest hums anew, alive with birdsong. And as you step deeper into the woods, you feel that same alms round happening within you, a steady offering of breath, gratitude, and awareness, filling your bowl from the inside. Section 3. The forest path leads you back to a clearing where the monks sit quietly, bowls now resting beside them. After eating in silence, they carefully wash their alms bowls, drying them with slow, mindful gestures. You notice how little they have brought with them: just a robe, a belt, and the bowl itself. There are no bags, no shoes stacked at the door, no shelves of possessions waiting to be tended. Their entire life fits into what they can carry, and somehow they look lighter because of it. The Buddha once said, "Contentment is the greatest wealth." You let that phrase roll through your mind. In a world where having more often feels like the goal, here in the forest you see the opposite. Freedom not in adding, but in letting go. These monks are not poor. They are rich in time, in presence, in the peace that comes from not guarding too many things. A quirky tradition of Thai forest monks comes to mind. Each monk owns exactly 8 items, 3 robes, 1 alms bowl, a belt, a razor, a needle, and a water filter. That is it. Nothing more, nothing less. Imagine if your entire life had to fit into 8 simple objects. What would remain? What would you release? The thought makes you pause. Perhaps simplicity is not about deprivation. It is about discovering what really matters. The robe itself is symbolic. Dyed in shades of earthy orange or brown, it blends with the forest, a reminder of humility and impermanence. As you watch, one monk adjusts his robe, folding it neatly across his shoulder. The fabric looks soft, worn thin by years of use, yet it seems to carry dignity far beyond its threadbare surface. Isn't it beautiful how something so plain can feel radiant when worn with mindfulness? You remember the story of a monk who found his robe stolen one night. Instead of anger, he left his hut open the next evening, saying softly, "If they return, I hope they take the bowl too, may it serve them well." The teaching shines through. When you have nothing to defend, no one can truly rob you. You run your hands across the earth, feeling the rough soil beneath your fingers. The monks beside you seem unbothered by discomfort, sitting cross-legged on the ground without mats or cushions, eating with hands instead of utensils. You realize their comfort does not come from softness beneath them, but from softness within them. The Buddhist teaching of non-attachment arises again. To be free is not to push things away, but to meet each moment without clinging. Could it be that the less you hold, the more open your arms become? What would happen if you loosened your grip on the things you think you need? The forest breeze picks up, and the robes sway gently in the wind. Birds scatter overhead, their wings catching the morning light. The monks remain still, as if they too are part of the forest. Roots in the soil, branches swaying but unbroken. You picture your own life reduced to essentials, each item chosen not for luxury, but for necessity. Perhaps the real richness lies not in what you can add, but in what you can let go of. Zen masters might say, "The robe, the bowl, the breath, what more do you need?" One of the monks smiles faintly, lifting his bowl as though it were a treasure. You feel the weight of that smile sink into you, reminding you that simplicity is not loss, it is freedom. The sun climbs higher, and shadows stretch thin across the clearing. You rise with the monks as they return their bowls to their huts, each movement calm, precise, unhurried. You follow them, carrying in your heart the lightness that comes from knowing that less can truly be more. Section 4. The day drifts into evening, and the forest changes its voice. As the monks retreat to their small huts, the air thickens with the hum of insects and the calls of unseen animals. You notice the shift day's chatter fading into night's mysterious song. Crickets chirp in waves, cicadas whine in the treetops, and now and then a rustle stirs the underbrush. You sit beneath a tall teak tree, wrapped in the deepening dusk, and wonder how it must feel to live here night after night. The Buddha taught that fear arises when the mind clings to me and mine. He reminded his disciples that danger is not always in the outside world, but in the stories we create about it. In the forest at night, that teaching comes alive. Every sound could be danger, or it could simply be life unfolding. The monks learn to sit with both possibilities, neither running nor chasing, simply breathing. A quirky detail of Thai forest practice surfaces in your memory. Many monks purposely meditate in tiger country. They choose spots where danger is real, where every sound in the dark tests the heart. Instead of fleeing, they bow to fear as if it were another teacher. Isn't it curious what most would avoid they walk toward? You sit quietly, the night pressing close. A low growl echoes faintly, far off, perhaps only your imagination. Your breath quickens for a moment, then slows again. You remind yourself, fear is a thought, just as Ajahn Mun once said. The sound may pass, or it may not. Either way, your awareness is here, steady as a flame. The forest feels vast, almost endless. Shadows stretch like moving figures, and the moonlight filters through branches, painting the ground in silver. You wonder, what would happen if you treated every shadow not as threat, but as reminder of impermanence? Zen masters might ask, is fear the roar outside or the echo within? You close your eyes, letting the sounds swirl around you. A frog croaks, sudden and loud, then falls silent. The wind rustles leaves overhead, nature's own lullaby. Is not it? Instead of disturbance, you hear rhythm. Instead of chaos, you sense balance. The forest is not quiet, yet it is deeply at peace. One monk once told his students, if you can sleep in the jungle without doors, then fear becomes your pillow, and you will discover it is softer than you think. You imagine lying on the forest floor, the hum of insects surrounding you, the stars peeking between the branches. Surprisingly, instead of tension, you feel a calm acceptance. The night holds you, just as it holds the creatures, the trees, and the rivers. The Buddha's teaching on mindfulness of breathing feels like a lantern here. Inhale, and you know the breath is coming in. Exhale, and you know it is leaving. This simple rhythm steadies you. You realize the monks do the same when they sit in the jungle. They breathe with the night until fear itself becomes just another sound among many. The growl does not return. The forest continues its chorus, and you sit in its heart, no longer seeking safety, no longer resisting. You realize the lesson is not to banish fear, but to make room for it. And in that space, peace arrives quietly, like moonlight slipping through leaves. You rise slowly, brushing dust from your robe. The night remains alive, but it no longer feels threatening. It feels like a companion, guiding you deeper into stillness. You step back onto the trail, carrying with you the strange truth the monks have long known. Even fear can be a doorway into calm. Section 5. The forest path curves until you see a small clearing where a simple hut rests on stilts, lifted above the damp ground. Its walls are woven bamboo, its roof thatched with dried palm leaves. A single oil lamp flickers inside, casting a warm glow across the doorway. You approach quietly, as though stepping into another world. This is the dwelling of a forest master, an elder monk whose presence radiates like the stillness of the trees around him. The Buddha taught the importance of Kalyana noble friendship, reminding his followers that good companions are not just part of the path, but the entire path itself. A wise teacher is like a mirror, showing you not only your strengths, but also the clinging that still binds you. Tonight, as you step into the master's hut, you feel that teaching embodied. The hut is almost empty. A mat rolled in the corner, a kettle, a few books wrapped in cloth, and the master himself sitting cross-legged on the floor. His robe is patched and faded, but his eyes shine with quiet humor. He gestures for you to sit. The silence between you feels more eloquent than words. A quirky story drifts into memory how some Thai forest masters test their students with riddles or unexpected challenges. One elder, when asked about the meaning of meditation, simply laughed and handed his student a broom. "Sweep," he said. The student, annoyed, swept all day before finally realizing the sweeping was not for the hut, it was for the mind. You smile at the thought, wondering what lesson this master might quietly hand you tonight. He pours tea into 2 cups, the steam curling upward in delicate threads. The cup he offers you is chipped, its glaze worn thin. You hold it carefully, noticing the warmth, the roughness, the imperfection. Isn't it curious how the simplest cup, worn and plain, can hold so much richness? Perhaps wisdom is the same, not polished, but lived. The master speaks softly, his voice like water running over stones. The forest does not give you what you want, he says. It gives you what you need. You let the words settle, thinking of the nights filled with animal cries, the mornings of bare feet on gravel, the days of carrying almost nothing. Could it be that every difficulty is not a barrier, but a lesson in disguise? The Buddha once said, "To see the truth, train yourself as you would train a wild elephant, patiently, firmly, with compassion." You imagine the forest as that elephant. Immense and untamed, yet gentle when approached with respect. The master's hut, small and fragile in this vast wilderness, is proof that peace can grow, even in the wildest places. You sip the tea. Its taste is bitter at first, then smooth, then sweet. The master nods as if to say, yes, that is life too. The teaching is not in the words, but in the sip itself. The way the bitterness softens if you linger long enough. What would happen if you treated your own struggles like this tea, not rejecting the bitter, but waiting for its sweetness to appear? The lamp flickers low, shadows bending across the bamboo walls. The master closes his eyes and simply breathes, as if reminding you that no more explanation is needed. His stillness is the teaching, his presence the answer. You realize that sometimes wisdom is not passed through speech, but through the way one lives. The forest outside murmurs with cicadas and distant rustles. Inside, the hut feels timeless, a pause in the turning of the world. You bow to the master, gratitude filling your chest, and step quietly back into the night. The lamp's glow fades behind you, but the lesson remains. Steady as the taste of tea lingering on your tongue, the forest gives not what you want, but what you need. Section 6. The night is alive again as you follow the trail deeper into the forest. Above you, the moon glimmers through gaps in the canopy, silvering the leaves. You pause on a flat rock near a grove where the sound of cicadas swells in waves, rising and falling like the tide of an unseen ocean. Their hum is steady, insistent, almost hypnotic. At first, it seems overwhelming, but as you listen longer, it begins to feel like the forest breathing. The Buddha taught the practice of mindfulness of sound, not to cling to pleasant noises or resist unpleasant ones, but to let all sound come and go as it is. He said that awareness itself is the anchor, not the silence or the noise. Sitting here among cicadas, the teaching comes alive. Each chirp is not an interruption, but part of the vast meditation of the night. There is a quirky practice among some Thai forest monks. They meditate specifically at the loudest times of day or night. Instead of waiting for silence, they sit with the chorus of cicadas, or even next to busy roads when traveling. They train themselves to see that peace is not found in the absence of sound, but in the way the mind meets it. Isn't it curious how a noise that once irritated can become soothing when embraced? You close your eyes and breathe with the cicadas. Their rhythm merges with your breath, inhaling as they swell, exhaling as they fall. The forest becomes a symphony, not chaotic but deeply patterned. You begin to notice spaces between the calls, tiny silences that feel like doorways. What would happen if you listened to your own mind this way, finding not just the noise but the spaces between thoughts? A story drifts back to you about a monk who meditated all night in the jungle. When asked how he endured the unending cries of insects, he smiled and said, "At first they were outside me. Then they were inside me. And finally there was no me at all, only sound." You sit with that for a moment, feeling how the forest sound fills not only your ears but your entire body. The cicadas crescendo again, vibrating in your chest, then fade until you hear only a distant frog calling near the water. Even this shift feels like a teaching. Sound comes, sound goes. Awareness remains. The Buddha's words on impermanence echo again. Gentle but firm, nothing stays, not even the hum of 1,000 wings. You let the sounds weave around you like a blanket. The rustling of leaves in the wind, the soft drip of water from a branch, the chorus of insects, all of it layers into a lullaby. Imperfect yet whole. You hear the wind rustling the leaves outside nature's own song is not it. The night deepens, but instead of pressing heavy, it opens wide. You realize that the forest monks do not fight the noise. They dissolve into it. You wonder, what if your own restless thoughts are Like these cicadas, loud at first, overwhelming, but simply part of the great hum of being alive, could peace come not by silencing them, but by listening differently? You shift slightly on the rock, feeling the cool stone beneath you, steady and grounding. The cicadas continue their endless chant, neither inviting nor rejecting you. They simply are. And in that simple being, you find yourself softening, your breath slowing, your body growing heavy with ease. You rise gently, the song still buzzing around you, and step once more onto the path. The chorus follows, not as disturbance, but as company, guiding you deeper into the heart of the forest and, perhaps, into the quietest part of yourself. Section 7. The path opens suddenly into a small clearing where torchlight flickers. Villagers have gathered at the forest's edge, waiting quietly with baskets of food and offerings. Their faces glow with a gentle reverence, palms pressed together as monks emerge from the trees in single file, robes flowing softly in the night air. You watch as the two worlds meet: forest and his village, renunciation and family, silence and speech woven together in a single act of giving. The Buddha often taught that generosity, dana, is the foundation of the path. He said that giving purifies the heart, softens clinging, and reminds us that we do not walk alone. Here, in this simple exchange, the teaching is alive. The monks bring no possessions, no wealth, no labor, only their presence and practice. The villagers bring food, flowers, candles, gifts of the earth transformed by their hands. Neither side feels lesser, neither feels greater. Both are part of the same circle. You notice how quiet the offering is. There are no grand speeches, no loud declarations. A child steps forward shyly, placing sticky rice into a monk's bowl. An elder follows, placing a handful of bananas. Each gift is received with the same bowed head, the same soft murmur of blessing. Isn't it beautiful how silence can carry more gratitude than words? A quirky story comes to mind. Some monks, traveling through remote villages, would receive only one banana or even a ladle of rice water as their meal. They would bow with the same joy as if they had been given a feast. Later, they would laugh among themselves, saying, "The taste is not in the food, but in the heart that offers it." You smile at the thought, realizing that wealth is not measured by fullness of the bowl, but by the spirit of giving and receiving. The Buddhist teaching of interdependence appears again here. Monks and villagers seem different, one living in the jungle with little, the other in homes with families, but they rely on each other. The monks need food. The villagers need spiritual refuge. Each supports the other, just as roots support the tree, and the tree gives shade to the roots. You hear the soft murmur of chanting as the monks return blessings to the crowd. Their voices blend like a river flowing gently over stones, low and steady. The villagers close their eyes, the sound washing over them like cool rain. You let the chanting seep into you too, noticing how your body relaxes, your breath deepens, as though the sound itself is clearing the dust from your thoughts. You wonder, what if you treated every exchange in your life, every conversation, every shared meal, as an offering, not something to take, not something to give away, but a circle, a flow, Zen masters might say. In true giving, there is no giver, no receiver, only the act itself. The baskets empty slowly, the monks, bowls filled. Yet no one looks greedy, no one looks deprived. It feels as though abundance flows endlessly, even though the food is simple. You realize that simplicity has a way of magnifying gratitude, because when little is given, it shines all the brighter. The torches flicker, insects circle their flames, and the forest hums beyond the clearing. The monks bow, the villagers bow, and the night itself seems to bow as well. When the gathering disperses, the villagers carry home lighter baskets, but fuller hearts. The monks turn back into the forest, bowls cradled carefully, steps unhurried, silence intact. You follow them again into the trees, feeling the glow of generosity still warming your chest. The offering lingers not as an image of food, but as a reminder that connection itself is nourishment. The forest deepens around you, but within, something feels more open, more spacious, as though your own heart has been fed. Section 8. The monks return quietly to their forest dwellings, bowls now set aside, robes folded neatly in the cool night air. You find yourself sitting again beneath a tall tree, the moonlight painting silver patterns across the forest floor. The meal has been shared, the chanting has faded, and what remains is the pure hush of simplicity. In this stillness, the forest feels even larger, stretching endlessly in every direction, yet you sense the monks carry no weight of possessions, no burden of excess. The Buddha once said, "With little, one is content. With contentment, one is rich." You hear that teaching in the hush of the forest, in the monks' soft breathing as they sit in meditation. They do not measure wealth in coins, nor in comforts, but in the freedom of a mind not entangled by desire. Their joy seems to rest not on having more, but on needing less. A quirky memory drifts forward. Some Thai forest monks would intentionally patch their robes with mismatched cloth, making them even less appealing, so that they would not be tempted by pride or vanity. To wear something plain was their reminder that beauty lies in the heart, not in appearance. You smile, picturing those robes stitched with scraps of color, each patch telling a story of letting go. Isn't it remarkable how even imperfection can be a form of grace? You listen as the night deepens. The chorus of insects is steady, almost like the hum of a far-off temple bell. The leaves rustle softly in the breeze, and you realize that nothing is missing here. No furniture, no devices, no glittering lights, just earth, sky, breath, and presence. You wonder, what would your life feel like if you too could rest in having less? Would the silence grow louder, or would it reveal the music that was always there? One monk nearby begins to chant softly under his breath, the syllables rolling like water. His voice does not fill the forest, it blends with it. As if the trees themselves were joining the chant, you feel your own breath sinking with his rhythm, your body relaxing, your mind loosening its grip on restless thoughts. The Buddha's teaching on the middle way echoes through you. Simplicity does not mean denial or suffering. It means finding balance, neither clinging to luxury nor chasing hardship. Here, the forest monks live with just enough: food for the body, silence for the heart, the Dhamma for the soul. You rest your back against the tree, eyes half closed, letting the night hold you. The stars scatter overhead, countless yet quiet, like tiny lamps in the sky. You realize the joy of less is not emptiness. It is space, open and boundless. The less you hold, the more room you have for peace. And now, as the night grows softer, so do you. Your breath slows, your body sinks deeper into stillness. Your mind drifts like a leaf carried gently downstream. The koans and stories you have walked through tonight blur into a single glow, a lantern in the chest that asks for nothing and illuminates everything. As your breath slows, feel every worry slip away, like leaves floating down a quiet stream. Peace is here, always has been. Let the forest hold you, its hum wrapping around you like a gentle robe. Your body is heavy, yet your heart feels light. The stars keep their watch above, the monks rest in their huts, and the earth itself seems to breathe with you. Sleep comes not as an ending, but as a continuation of this simplicity. A softer step on the same path. Story 4, Buddhist Teachings for Relaxation, the Heart Sutra, Emptiness and Gentle Clarity. Section 1. Hey guys, tonight we are going to explore some timeless Zen stories that have helped people find peace and relaxation for centuries. If your mind's been racing all day, these tales might gently pull you back to the stillness waiting within. In our busy lives, it is easy to forget that calm is not out there. It is already yours to uncover. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you feel like it, share your location and local time down below. I love seeing where you are listening from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let us ease into tonight's journey together. You begin by noticing the quiet around you, the kind of quiet that feels almost like a whisper brushing against the edges of your thoughts. That whisper is where the Heart Sutra begins. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. These simple yet mysterious words are like ripples across still water. They seem to vanish, yet somehow they change the whole surface. You sit with the phrase, not trying to solve it, just letting it echo. What does it mean for the table beside you, or the pillow supporting your head? What does it mean for the thoughts drifting lazily through your mind? Buddhism often reminds you that clinging to solid forms, identities, possessions, even ideas is what makes life heavy. The Buddha taught that everything changes, so nothing is fixed enough to hold onto forever. Emptiness does not mean nothing exists. It means everything you see is in constant flow, like waves forming and fading on the ocean. You notice your own breath, rising and falling, never the same twice. In that simple rhythm, the teaching becomes clear. You do not have to freeze life in place to feel safe. A story comes to you from the Zen tradition. A monk once carried an empty wooden bowl everywhere he went. People laughed. Why carry a bowl when you have no food? The monk smiled and tapped the bowl, saying, "This is already full." Some thought he was crazy, others thought he was wise. To him, emptiness was not lack, it was infinite potential. An empty bowl can hold rice, or tea, or even nothing at all. Without emptiness, nothing could enter. You feel how that is true for your own mind. When it is cluttered with plans and worries, there is no room for rest. But when it is empty, it becomes vast, spacious, able to welcome peace. Zen practice sometimes takes quirky forms to make this real. In some monasteries, a monk will sweep the same stone path every morning, even if no leaves have fallen. You might wonder why sweep what is already clean. The answer lies in the heart. Sutras whisper, form and emptiness are not separate. The path looks clear, yet sweeping it teaches the monk to see each moment as new, to experience fullness and emptiness and fullness. Tonight, as you lie still, perhaps you too are sweeping your inner path, making space without needing to add anything. You glance inward and reflect, what would it mean if everything you are holding, every worry, every story about who you must be, were seen as empty in this way, not erased, not denied, but lighter, less rigid, more like clouds drifting than stones pressing down? The Zen masters might ask you, if your hands are open, what can't you hold? That paradox becomes your lullaby, easing your grip on the day. The whisper of emptiness is not frightening. It is gentle, like a quiet voice reminding you that nothing is missing. The pillow under your head, the hum in the room, your own slow breath, all of it is form, all of it is emptiness, and somehow both at once. You do not need to solve it. You only need to rest in it. And as you do, you might notice the soft rustling outside, like leaves brushing against one another, nature's way of nodding along. The Heart Sutra begins as a whisper, but in your stillness, it becomes a song without words. You close your eyes, breathing into the spaciousness, and realize the whisper of emptiness has always been here, waiting for you to listen. Section 2. You follow that whisper deeper, like walking down a shaded forest path at dusk. The air feels cooler, softer, as though it is inviting you to set down whatever weight you have been carrying. In this gentle twilight, you come across the second truth of the Heart Sutra, that when you release the idea of a fixed self, the shadows you once feared no longer cling so tightly. Think of how often you hold on to the idea of me. My work, my reputation, my plans, my mistakes. Each of these feels like a shadow attached to your steps. The Buddha taught that clinging to a permanent self is like chasing a mirage. It looks real in the distance, but as you approach, it slips away. In this way, the shadows that seem so dark are only play of light. A Zen story comes alive here. A monk was once traveling at night, carrying a single candle to light the way. Another monk, mischievous and smiling, blew out the flame. At first, the traveler froze in panic, overwhelmed by darkness. But then his eyes adjusted, and he saw the moon shining bright enough to guide him. Sometimes the second monk said, "You must lose the little flame to see the greater light." You smile at the memory. Shadows only teach you where the light really is. In certain Zen temples, practitioners meditate while gazing at a blank wall for hours. To outsiders, it seems strange, even boring. But by facing that plain wall, they learn to see through the shadows of thought, when your mind is a screen of stories, good and bad. Future and past sitting before a blank wall is like letting the shadows dissolve. The wall does not speak, yet it shows you everything. As you rest now, you feel that teaching seeping in. The shadows of your day arguments, worries, the endless to-do list seem a little less solid. What if they, too, are just flickers of light and absence, coming and going? Zen masters might ask you, if the shadow disappears when the lamp is gone, what was it made of in the first place? Your breath carries you forward, steady as footsteps on soft earth. Inhaling, you gather the day. Exhaling, you release the shadow of self. You notice a calm curiosity rising if you are not fixed. If you are more like a flowing stream than a stone, then who are you really? That question does not need an answer. It is enough to feel its spaciousness. The forest around you seems alive, with sound, the wind brushing leaves, a bird calling once before silence settles again. You realize that even in darkness, the world is not empty in a cold sense. It is alive, filled with presence. The Heart Sutra whispers through those sounds. Walking through shadows, you are already whole. You rest in that thought. Your body sinking deeper into ease, your mind lighter than when the section began. The candle is out, the moon is shining, and you walk gently forward into the night. Section 3. You keep walking along that moonlit path, and soon a small pavilion appears. Its roof curved like gentle waves, its wooden frame weathered by time. Inside, a single candle flickers beside a mirror, and a simple clay bowl. You step closer and see how the flame dances across the mirror's surface, the reflection alive, yet not the flame itself. In that play of light and image, you begin to feel the meaning of interdependence, the way everything leans upon everything else. The Buddha once explained that nothing exists in isolation. A flower depends on soil, rain, and sunlight. Your breath depends on the air given by trees, and their life depends on the sun. Even the thought in your mind right now depends on what came before it. This is the truth of interbeing. In the Heart Sutra, this is expressed in the phrase no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, reminding you that these senses are not separate possessions. They are open gateways, always interwoven with the world. A Zen story whispers here. A monk once asked his master, "What is the self?" The master pointed to the reflection of the moon shimmering on a pond. "That," he said. The monk frowned. "But the reflection is not the moon," the master replied. "And yet, without the water, you would not see its beauty." You smile at the lesson. The reflection is not false. It is simply interdependent. There is a curious Zen practice where monks meditate by watching candlelight in a mirror, observing how the image trembles with every shift of the flame. At first it seems like an exercise in distraction, but slowly you notice the truth. The mirror shows you not only the flame, but also the invisible movements of air, the subtlest tremors of breath in the room. Suddenly you realize nothing stands alone. You sit quietly with this teaching. You are not just you, you are the sum of your ancestors' lives, the meals you have eaten, the friendships that have shaped your heart. Your laugh is partly your grandmother's laugh, your patience perhaps borrowed from a kind teacher, your restless thoughts echoes of the society you live in. Zen masters might ask, if you remove the sun, the rain, the soil, and the farmer, where is the rice in your bowl? Your breathing slows as you reflect on this. Each inhale you take tonight is given by the trees outside. Each exhale feeds them in return. The cycle feels so natural. You almost forget it is happening, but the mirror of the Heart Sutra helps you see. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. The flame and its reflection, the moon and the pond. Your breath and the forest. None exist without the other. You feel your body relax even more deeply into this insight. The candle glows, the mirror holds its image, and the clay bowl waits patiently, empty but ready. Outside, you hear the soft creak of a branch swaying in the wind, a reminder that everything touches everything. The pavilion is silent yet alive with connection. And as you rest, you wonder softly if you two are both flame and reflection, both moon and pond. Then perhaps being yourself is not about standing apart, but about shining in harmony. Section 4. You linger in the pavilion, watching the candle fade lower. The mirror grows dimmer until it reflects only the outline of your face. Near the clay bowl, you notice something delicate. A single feather resting on the wooden floor, light enough to shift with the faintest breeze. You pick it up, and suddenly it feels as though the entire Heart Sutra is hidden within its softness. The Buddha often taught that the self is not solid, not heavy, but a collection of elements always changing. The feather shows you this truth: no weight, no resistance, only lightness. It is form, and yet in its hollowness you sense emptiness. Holding it, you realize how many times you make your burdens heavier by clinging to them. Thoughts, grudges, regrets, they are all lighter than you believe. There is a Zen parable about a monk who carried a sack full of feathers on his back. Each feather represented a single thought. One day his master asked, "Why do you struggle under so much weight, when each burden is lighter than air?" The monk looked surprised, then laughed, realizing the absurdity. He had mistaken the feather-light thoughts for stones. You reflect for a moment. How often do you do the same? Some monasteries practice what is called feather sweeping. Monks tie a single feather to a stick and sweep dust from ancient altars, not because it cleans better, but because it teaches gentleness. Too much force would break the feather, but with patience it brushes away the dust. You imagine yourself sweeping your mind with such softness tonight, brushing away tension with no hurry, no force. As you lie there, you notice your shoulders, perhaps tighter than you knew. With the feather in mind, you let them sink into ease. You feel your jaw unclench, your forehead soften. Each release is a stroke of that invisible feather, teaching you how lightness can clear the heaviest of spaces. Zen masters might ask, if even a feather cannot rest on emptiness, then what truly weighs you down? The question floats through your thoughts like the feather itself, never landing, never needing an answer. The Heart Sutra reminds you that in emptiness there is no burden, no fear, no grasping. The feather, the mirror, the bowl, they are each forms that reveal this. You glance at the small feather again and smile. It needed nothing to be light, nothing to be free. It simply was. A breeze moves through the pavilion, and the feather slips from your fingers, dancing on invisible currents before settling back down. You do not chase it. You simply watch. The teaching is clear enough. When you let go, what is light remains light. And as you rest in this moment, you realize perhaps your thoughts are just feathers too, waiting to drift away when you stop gripping them so tightly. Section 5. You step out of the pavilion and find yourself on a mountain path, the air crisp and carrying the scent of pine. The sky opens wide, filled with stars so numerous they seem to hum with silence. As you climb higher, you hear it, the echo of a chant rolling across the valley, a rhythm that rises and falls like the mountain winds. It is the Heart Sutra, recited in voices that seem both near and impossibly far. The Buddha once said that chanting is not about sound alone, but about aligning body, breath, and mind into harmony. Each syllable of the Heart Sutra gate, paragate. Parasamgate flows like steps across a bridge you cannot see. You feel the vibrations in your chest, even though you are silent. The chant is not just in the monks' throats, it is in the stones, in the trees, even in the night air around you. A Zen story comes to mind of a young monk who could never remember the sutra. His teacher, instead of scolding, told him to chant just one word, ah. The monk did this faithfully, day after day, until even the birds outside began to echo his sound. When asked if he now understood the Heart Sutra, the master smiled and said, "You do not need the words if you have become the wan, echo. You pause and let that thought ripple inside you. Understanding is not always about memorizing. Sometimes it is about resonance." There is a unique Zen practice called mountain echo meditation. Monks chant into valleys, not to be heard by people, but to listen as the mountains return their voices. The echo is never the same as the original. Sometimes softer, sometimes stretched, sometimes twisted by the wind. This teaches them that all expression changes upon meeting the world. In emptiness, sound and silence embrace each other. You listen now, not to the monks but to the echo. It comes back fainter, delayed, almost like the mountain itself is chanting along. You realize how similar your own thoughts are. They rise in your mind, bounce around, and return altered. Some worries return sharper, some softer, some vanish altogether. Zen masters might ask, is the echo your voice or the mountains? Your breath falls into the rhythm of the chant, inhale, exhale, like syllables in the sutra. With each exhale, you imagine sending your voice out into the valley. With each inhale, you receive the echo back, changed, softened. This exchange feels endless, a reminder that emptiness is not absence, but infinite response. Above you, the stars twinkle like tiny candles, each one both near and impossibly distant. The chanting merges with the sound of night insects, the rustle of leaves, even the quiet beat of your own heart. Everything is echoing, answering, resonating. The Heart Sutra teaches that emptiness is clarity like sound returning from the mountains. It strips away what is unnecessary and leaves only essence. You close your eyes, resting in that clarity, feeling how vast your own mind is when it stops chasing every thought. And as you sink into this spacious awareness, you understand the echo is not something outside. It is your own stillness, calling you home. Section 6. The mountain path winds downward now, and before you stretches a narrow bridge of old wood, arched gently over a stream that glimmers in moonlight. At first glance it looks fragile, almost too delicate to trust, yet when you place your foot upon it, the boards hold steady. You pause there, midway across, feeling the water flowing beneath, and suddenly you sense the teaching, hidden in the Heart Sutra's words. There is nothing fixed to cling to, no place truly solid, and yet wisdom itself is what allows you to walk. The Buddha explained that wisdom is not about adding knowledge, but about seeing through illusions. Just as the bridge rests on no permanent foundation, it flexes with the current, sways with the wind. You realize that life itself is built on shifting ground. And still, you keep walking. You do not need the world to be unchanging for it to carry you. A Zen parable surfaces. A monk once asked his master, "What lies on the other side of the bridge?" The master smiled and replied, "There is no other side." Confused, the monk pressed further. The master pointed down at the flowing stream and said, "When you stop looking for a rival, every step is already crossing. You let that settle in, realizing how often you walk only to reach, forgetting that each step itself is the journey. Some Zen communities build bridges to nowhere, small wooden spans that begin on solid ground and end in grass or empty space. They are not for crossing, but for teaching. When a monk steps onto such a bridge, he must ask, "Why do I step if there is no destination?" The answer reveals itself. Stepping is enough. Wisdom is realizing that the act itself is complete. As you breathe in, you feel the boards beneath your feet creak, and as you breathe out, you notice the stream's murmur blending with the night air. Suddenly you see that this bridge is not something separate. It is water, wind, wood, footsteps, all moving together. Zen masters might ask, if the bridge and the stream support each other, which one carries you? You imagine your own life as such a bridge. Jobs, relationships, ambitions, each one feels like something to cross, yet none is fixed. None lasts forever. And still, you move across them, gaining strength not from permanence, but from trust in the flowing moment. The stream below sparkles, the boards sway gently, and your body feels lighter. You realize that emptiness does not erase the bridge. It simply reveals that the bridge is never separate, never independent. It has always been part of the stream, the earth, the sky. You take another step, and another, until standing still feels no different than moving. The bridge is no crossing, and yet here you are, carried effortlessly. And in that realization, you rest, smiling softly into the night. Section 7. You stand quietly after crossing the bridge, and soon your ears catch a faint resonance in a valley below. It is not a chant this time, not a bird, not even the stream you left behind. It is silence, yet a silence that feels alive, like the deep toll of a bell that no longer rings. This silence settles around you with a clarity sharper than any sound. The Buddha once taught that wisdom is not only found in words or doctrines, but in direct seeing. Silence is one of the most direct teachers. The Heart Sutra tells you that in emptiness there is no fear, no attainment, nothing fixed to cling to. When you hear the silence, you realize you do not need to add anything, no grasping, no explaining. You are already in the middle of clarity. A Zen story drifts into mind. A monk asked his master, "What is truth?" The master simply lifted a finger to his lips. The monk sat there, puzzled at first, but after hours of sitting in the quiet, something inside gave way. His thoughts stilled, and he felt a peace deeper than understanding. He bowed low, realizing the finger had been the teaching all along. There is a Zen practice known as listening to the bell after the bell. When a great bronze bell is struck, its deep tone rolls out, powerful and lingering. Yet monks are taught to keep listening, even after the sound fades, to notice the subtle hum that remains in the air, and even beyond that, the silence that holds the vibration. It is in this silence that clarity often arrives clearer than the sound itself. You pause and listen to your own inner bell. Maybe the events of your day are the ringing, the arguments, the errands, the laughter, the worries. They strike loudly. But now, in this still moment, the after-sound drifts away. What is left is not empty in a barren sense. It is open, like a vast sky. Zen masters might ask, when the bell is silent, who is it that still hears? Your breath slows. The night air feels wide, and in that width, your thoughts dissolve like mist. The silence does not demand effort. It simply enfolds you. The trees stand quietly. The earth rests beneath you. The stars shimmer without a sound. Yet this absence of noise feels like the truest music of all. The Heart Sutra whispers through the silence, no attainment and nothing to attain. You realize how freeing that is. There is nothing left to chase. You do not need to capture this moment or make it last. It already is, and that is enough. And as you let the silence wash through you, it feels like the clearest teaching you have received tonight. The bell does not need to ring again. The silence itself has become the master. Section 8. Beyond the valley, you walk into a garden bathed in soft moonlight. The air carries the scent of night-blooming flowers, delicate and sweet. At the center of the garden, a lotus floats on a small pond. Its petals, pale as starlight, unfold slowly in the cool air. You kneel by the water's edge, gazing at its reflection, and in that moment, the Heart Sutra speaks. Again, from emptiness, clarity blooms. The Buddha often compared human potential to the lotus. Its roots sink into dark, muddy water, yet from that very mud rises a flower of rare beauty. The Heart Sutra reminds you that emptiness is not a void to fear. It is the fertile ground where wisdom can blossom. When you release your grip on fixed forms, when you see through the illusion of separation, clarity comes forward like petals opening at night. A Zen story comes to mind. A student once asked his teacher, "What is enlightenment like?" The teacher picked up a lotus, held it silently, and smiled. The student frowned. Unsure, but years later he remembered that smile and realized the answer was never in words. The lotus was enough. The silence was enough. The smile was enough. There is a gentle practice among certain monks where they sit in gardens after sunset, not speaking, simply watching the flowers close and open with the rhythm of day and night. They believe each unfolding petal mirrors their own heart learning to open, not through effort, but through patience. You imagine yourself sitting there too, watching the lotus in its quiet blooming. Your own breath feels like petals tonight. Inhale as one unfolds, exhale as another softens. The body is no longer something heavy, but part of the same garden. Zen masters might ask, if the lotus blooms from mud, why do you fear your own shadows? The question lingers gently, not as a challenge, but as an invitation to trust the clarity that rises from your life's depths. The night is still. The pond perfectly mirrors the stars above. You notice the way each ripple bends the reflection, and yet the stars never vanish. That is how the Heart Sutra feels now. Emptiness, bending every thought and feeling, yet never erasing them. The clarity of truth shines steadily, even when the waters of the mind stir. You rest in this vision, the lotus, the stars, your own breath, all reflections of the same vast emptiness and form. There is nothing more to seek, nothing more to add. And as the petals continue to open in the moonlight, you find yourself easing into the softest rest, guided not by striving, but by the gentle certainty that clarity always blooms from emptiness. Story 5. Buddhist Teachings for Relaxation, the Bodhi Tree, Awakening Beneath Still Branches. Section 1. Hey guys, tonight we are going to explore some timeless Zen stories that have helped people find peace and relaxation for centuries. If your mind's been racing all day, these tales might gently pull you back to the stillness waiting within. In our busy lives, it is easy to forget that calm is not out there. It is already yours to uncover. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you would like, share your location and local time down in the comments. I love seeing where everyone is listening from across the world. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let us ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself standing before the great Bodhi tree, its branches spread wide, leaves fluttering like gentle whispers in the night breeze. The air around it feels thick with presence, as though countless breaths of seekers before you still linger here. You look down at the roots, massive, intertwined, reaching deep into the earth. They remind you of the Buddha himself. Grounding fully into truth before rising into awakening, the Buddha often spoke of taking refuge in the Dharma, the truth of things as they are. Roots are a perfect reflection of this. They hold the tree steady, unseen but essential. Just as truth holds your life steady when you learn to rest in it. Without roots, the tree would topple at the first storm. Without grounding, the mind collapses under the weight of distraction. You breathe deeply, feeling your own breath as a kind of root, anchoring you here, in this moment. There is an old Zen tale about a monk who tried to meditate beneath a tree, but complained that the branches distracted him with rustling. His master told him, "Listen not to the branches, but to the roots." At first confused, the monk eventually realized the teaching, when the mind is noisy, return to the source. You reflect on that the source is always beneath the chatter. Just like the monk, you too can choose to listen deeper.
Some Zen practitioners even practice what is called root gazing. They sit by old trees, letting their eyes soften on the roots, imagining their own worries draining down into the earth like water. You picture that now, your thoughts, your tightness flowing away through roots into the soil, where the earth transforms them into nourishment.
You ask yourself, what are your roots tonight? Is it your breath, the people who've shaped you, the wisdom that has always been available? If you pause to notice, Zen masters might wonder, if the tree forgets its roots, can it still stand? The question is not to puzzle you, but to guide you gently back into your own grounding. The roots of the Bodhi tree remind you that awakening does not float above life. It grows out of the soil of ordinary experience, even out of your mistakes, your struggles, your imperfections. Every twist of the root, every knot in the bark has its purpose. The Buddha found enlightenment not by escaping life, but by sitting firmly within it, rooted like the tree itself. As you linger here, the rustle of leaves overhead feels like a lullaby, and the roots below like a steady heartbeat of the earth. You sense that the same grounded stillness is in you too, waiting, patient, enduring. Tonight, you do not have to strive for it. You simply rest in it the way the tree rests in soil, and as you close your eyes for a moment, the image of those vast roots remains, a reminder that beneath all your changing thoughts and feelings, something steady is always holding you. Continue. Section 2. You stay with the image of the roots, and then your attention drifts upward, following the trunk of the Bodhi tree as it rises into the sky. Its bark is rough but steady, each line carved by years of sun and rain. You notice how solid it feels, as though it has been waiting through countless nights. Beneath its canopy, you remember the story. Siddhartha Gautama, the one who would become the Buddha, sat in meditation here, vowing not to rise until he had seen the truth.
The Buddha's quiet vigil lasted through the long hours of night, when the mind is most restless. He faced hunger, fatigue, and every distraction the mind could conjure. Yet he stayed still. You imagine yourself in that same position, sitting on cool grass, moonlight brushing your shoulders, listening to the silence deepen. The teaching here is simple, yet powerful. Patience and determination are part of awakening. The Buddha taught that nothing worth knowing comes from rushing.
A Zen story echoes this lesson. A student once asked his master, "How long will it take me to reach enlightenment if I meditate every day?" The master replied, 10 years. The student frowned. "What if I try very hard, twice as long each day?" The master smiled. "Then 20 years. The point was clear, forcing the path only makes it more distant." Like the Buddha beneath the tree, you realize that sitting quietly, without hurry, is the doorway itself. Some Zen practitioners practice night sitting. They sit through the dark hours when everyone else is asleep, training themselves to meet drowsiness and wandering thoughts without moving. It is said that even the crickets become teachers then, their steady rhythm guiding the breath. You think of that now, how even the hum of your own room tonight could become a companion in meditation if you let it. You ask yourself, how often do you resist stillness because it feels uncomfortable? What would happen if you simply stayed, the way the Buddha did, through every flicker of restlessness? Zen masters might ask, if you rise before the dawn, how will you ever see the sunrise? As you picture the vigil, you feel the quiet determination in your own body. You do not need to do anything special. Just sit, breathe, and allow the moment to unfold. The still branches above seem to whisper encouragement, reminding you that everything ripens in its own time. The night stretches on, but it does not feel heavy. Instead, it feels timeless, as though sitting beneath this tree you have stepped out of the rush of days. You sense that even your wandering thoughts are part of the vigil, each one passing like clouds across the moon. And in this patient stillness you begin to understand. Awakening is not about chasing light, but about waiting quietly until the light finds you. Section 3. The stillness of the vigil deepens, and with it comes a shift in the air. You notice how the silence thickens, almost like a veil, and through it arise flickers of thought-old memories, small fears, quiet longings. This is the moment in the story when Mara, the tempter of illusions, approaches the Buddha beneath the Bodhi tree. Mara's weapons are not swords, but thoughts, doubts, desires, and fears that twist the mind. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from clinging to these illusions, from believing every thought and fear is who you are. Sitting there, you sense how familiar Mara's tricks are. A whisper of self-doubt, a sudden craving for comfort, an old regret knocking at the door of memory. They drift in, as naturally as shadows crossing moonlight. There is a Zen story of a monk who declared, "Mara has visited me again." His teacher laughed and said, "Invite him in for tea." At first, the monk thought this was a joke, but in time he realized that when he stopped fighting Mara, when he treated these dark visitors as guests, they lost their power. Imagine yourself doing the same tonight. When a troubling thought comes, instead of pushing it away, you simply say, "Ah, here you are. Sit with me." Some Zen practitioners use a practice called naming the demon. When a restless thought or craving arises, they bow slightly to it, whispering its name, fear, anger, desire, and then let it drift by like incense smoke. The act of recognition loosens the hold. You imagine naming your own restless thoughts tonight, not to cling to them, but to acknowledge and release them. You pause to reflect. If Mara's illusions arise from within, then perhaps their strength is only the strength you give them. Zen masters might ask, if the arrow of fear is made of smoke, why do you clutch it so tightly? The Buddha beneath the Bodhi tree did not banish Mara with anger or force. He simply saw through him. He touched the earth with his hand, calling it to witness his right to awaken. The ground itself supported him, while Mara's illusions faded like mist at sunrise. You feel the firmness of the ground beneath your own body now, steady and supportive, a reminder that truth is always stronger than illusion. The night air feels lighter. The branches sway slightly, and you sense that even shadows have their place, teaching you how to see light more clearly. You rest in the awareness that your mind, too, can sit steady beneath its own branches, watching thoughts come and go without being disturbed. And as Mara's illusions dissolve in the story, you notice something inside you dissolving too, a little less weight, a little more space, as though the night itself has opened to let you breathe more freely. Section 4. The night stretches on, and the air feels cool against your skin. Above you, the branches of the Bodhi tree sway gently, each leaf catching the pale light of the moon. You sit as the Buddha did, not moving, not resisting, just breathing with the rhythm of the earth. And then, as the story goes, the first hints of dawn begin to appear, a soft glow spreading across the horizon, faint at first, like a whisper of gold on the edge of darkness. The Buddha's long vigil came to this moment, the dawning of insight. After facing Mara's illusions, after resting in stillness, he saw reality clearly. He realized that clinging to desire and fear is what binds the heart, and letting go is what frees it. You feel that same teaching brushing against your own thoughts. How often do you reach for something outside yourself, forgetting that clarity blooms when you simply sit and see? There is a Zen story of a monk who stayed awake all night, hoping for enlightenment at sunrise. When dawn came, he saw the light flood the monastery and wept, not because he felt awakened, but because he realized the sun had risen countless times before, and he had never truly seen it. The master told him, "The sun does not need your enlightenment. It rises for you to notice. You smile at the simplicity. Awakening is not hidden, it is already shining." Some Zen practitioners use the practice of sun gazing at dawn, not to worship the sun, but to remind themselves that every day begins again, fresh and unburdened. They watch the first light with soft eyes, allowing the warmth to touch their face, as though it were the Buddha's smile returning to the world. You imagine yourself there now, feeling the first warmth of morning across your brow. You reflect, How many times in your own life has light arrived, unnoticed because your mind was elsewhere? Zen masters might ask, if the sun is always rising, why do you wait for a special dawn? The Heart Sutra whispers through this moment, no attainment and nothing to attain. Dawn does not announce itself with fireworks. It simply arrives. Awakening is the same quiet, steady, like branches stirring in the breeze. The Buddha opened his eyes and saw that nothing needed to be added. The truth was always here, waiting beneath the still branches. The garden of night is now a garden of light. Birds stir, the stream murmurs more brightly, and each leaf of the Bodhi tree glows as though illuminated from within. You feel the same glow stirring gently inside you, not as a sudden flash, but as a slow and steady rising. And as you breathe in the light of dawn, you understand, awakening is less about reaching and more about noticing what has always been present. Section 5. The sun climbs higher now, warm light filtering through the branches of the Bodhi tree. Each leaf seems to shimmer like a tiny lamp, their movement casting soft patterns of light and shadow on the ground. You notice how the shade gathers in gentle pools around you, offering coolness where the heat of the day might otherwise weigh heavy. In that shade you feel what countless pilgrims and wanderers must have felt, compassion extending itself quietly, like the branches themselves. The Buddha often taught that compassion is the natural flowering of awakening. Just as the Bodhi tree shelters travelers from the burning sun, compassion shields beings from the suffering of isolation and fear. When you sit beneath the branches, you sense that kindness is not something to be forced. It is like the shade, effortless, given freely, without asking who deserves it. There is a Zen story of a wandering monk who sought shelter under a tree during a storm. When lightning struck nearby, he panicked, clutching at the trunk. But the tree did not resist, did not complain. It simply stood, offering what protection it could. Later, the monk reflected, "The tree teaches me to give without calculation." You consider this how much lighter life feels when compassion flows naturally, without asking, what will I get in return? In some monasteries, there is a practice called the shade walk. Monks deliberately walk only where the shadows fall, pacing slowly in the cool patterns beneath trees. They do this to remind themselves that compassion, like shade, is subtle and everywhere if you are willing to notice. You picture yourself walking that way now, stepping from shadow to shadow, feeling calmness rise like a soft tide. You pause to reflect. In your own life, where are the shady places, the quiet acts of kindness that have kept you cool in difficult times? Maybe a friend's gentle word, a stranger's small gesture, a loved one's patience. Zen masters might ask, if shade falls on you without choosing, can you not offer it the same way to others? The Bodhi tree stands silently, yet its lesson radiates. Each leaf that flickers above seems to say, be kind, not because it is a duty, but because it is natural. Just as the tree does not choose who may sit beneath it, your heart can widen without conditions. The breeze stirs, and the shade deepens, wrapping you like a soft cloak. You realize that in giving shelter to others, you too become sheltered. Compassion is not depletion, it is replenishment. The more you give, the more the branches seem to spread. And as you rest in this living canopy, you sense that compassion, like shade, is not something you create. It is something that has always been here, waiting for you to step beneath it. Section 6. You linger beneath the shade, and soon you hear soft voices carried on the breeze. They are not the chants of monks, but stories, legends told for centuries about the Bodhi tree itself. Some are solemn, others playful, yet all of them carry a gentle truth. You lean in, as though the leaves themselves are whispering these tales just for you. One story says that when the Buddha attained awakening, the tree bowed slightly, its branches lowering as if in reverence. Birds circled above, offering their songs, and even the earth trembled lightly with joy.
It is a beautiful image, is not it? The whole world celebrating, not with fanfare, but with small, tender gestures.
Another tale describes how the Bodhi tree has been protected through time. Kings once sent guards to ensure no harm came to it. Later, monks carried a cutting of the tree across the sea to Sri Lanka, where it still grows today, said to be the oldest living tree with a recorded history. You imagine the reverence in those monks' hands as they carried a small sapling across oceans, believing it carried the same blessing as the great tree itself. There is even a lighter story monks sometimes share with a smile, that the tree's leaves hum softly at night, not from wind, but from the Buddha's laughter echoing through time. Whether true or not, you can almost hear it now, a soft chuckle in the rustling above, a reminder not to take yourself too seriously. In some Zen communities, practitioners engage in tree listening. They sit with their backs against ancient trunks, letting the creaks, rustles, and whispers of leaves become their meditation bell. The idea is simple. If you listen long enough, the tree will tell you stories not in words but in rhythm. You imagine resting against the Bodhi tree now, each sound like a gentle parable entering your heart without needing explanation. You reflect, do you treat stories as mere entertainment, or do you let them reshape the way you see? Zen masters might ask. If a story makes you pause, is it not already true? The legends may be fanciful, but as you sit here, you feel their weight and their playfulness at once. The Bodhi tree is not just wood and leaves, it is a living symbol, woven into countless lives, countless imaginations. And in hearing its stories, you sense yourself becoming part of that lineage too, resting beneath branches that have sheltered seekers for centuries. The shade deepens around you, carrying both silence and story. The leaves stir again, as though nudging you gently. Remember, awakening is not always found in solemn silence. It sometimes arrives, wrapped in a smile, or hidden in a tale that makes your heart lighter. And as you close your eyes, you can almost feel the stories sinking into you, each one a soft root extending deeper into your own sense of belonging beneath these still branches. Section 7. You sit with the stories still echoing in your mind, and soon you notice the steady sound of footsteps on a dusty road nearby. A weary pilgrim appears, shoulders slumped, clothes carrying the marks of long travel. The pilgrim sees the Bodhi tree and, like so many before, walks slowly toward its shade. You watch as they sink down beneath the branches, sighing with relief, the way a traveler might when finally finding water after a long desert walk. The Buddha once taught that the Dharma is a refuge, just as the tree is a shelter. The teachings are a resting place for the heart. You see it here in the pilgrim's body, the tension melting away, the face softening, the breath slowing. How often in your own life do you forget that you too can rest, not only in beds or in quiet rooms, but in the presence of wisdom itself? A Zen story drifts to you. A monk wandered for years, searching for a temple where he could find peace. Exhausted, he collapsed beneath a tree. In his dream, he saw the Buddha smiling and saying, "You have always been in the temple." When he awoke, he realized the temple was not walls or statues, it was the stillness he found whenever he stopped running. You wonder how many temples have you already passed by without recognizing them. There is a practice among some monks called pilgrim's pause. Instead of rushing to their destination, they stop whenever they see a tree, bow slightly, and sit for a while. Each pause becomes a reminder that rest is part of the journey, not a distraction from it. You imagine doing the same in your own life, pausing during a busy day, sitting quietly even for a minute, letting the still branches of the present moment shelter you. You ask yourself, what burdens are you carrying on your shoulders tonight, and what would it feel like to set them down, even for a moment? Beneath this tree, Zen masters might ask, if the road never ends, where will you rest, if not here? The pilgrim leans back, eyes half closed, letting the shade wrap around them like a gentle blanket. You feel your own body doing the same, as though you too are resting from a long journey. The sound of the leaves is soft, steady, like a lullaby written by the earth itself. The Bodhi tree does not question the pilgrim's worthiness. It offers shade to whoever comes near. And in this gift you sense the deepest truth. Awakening is not for a chosen few. It is here, beneath still branches, available to every traveler who stops long enough to rest. And as you let your body sink deeper into that sense of refuge, you realize you too are the pilgrim, and the shelter you seek has already found you. Section 8. The pilgrim's breath evens out, and you feel your own breath joining in that same rhythm, slow, deep, unhurried. The morning has stretched into full day, yet beneath the branches, time feels softened, like a stream flowing without urgency. You lean your head back, gazing up at the vast canopy, and it strikes you, this tree is not just a witness to the Buddha's awakening. It is a living symbol, reminding you that awakening is never far away. The Buddha often said that enlightenment is not a prize at the end of a journey, but the uncovering of what was always here. Just as the Bodhi tree stands quietly, season after season, the truth waits quietly in your own life. The leaves do not strive to be leaves, they simply are. The tree does not chase after enlightenment, it simply embodies it. Day after day. You feel how liberating that is. You do not need to chase, you only need to notice. A Zen tale comes to mind of a monk who asked his master, "What is Buddha?" The master pointed to a tree outside and said, "There." The monk frowned, expecting a deeper explanation. But later, while sitting beneath that tree, watching the wind move through its branches, the monk realized the point. The living truth was right in front of him, needing no embellishment. You consider this. How many times has clarity stood before you, overlooked because it seemed too ordinary? There is a quirky Zen practice called tree bowing. Practitioners bow not only to statues or teachers, but to trees, rivers, and even stones, as a way of honoring the Dharma that is everywhere. Imagine bowing softly to the Bodhi tree now, not because it is sacred wood, but because it reflects the sacredness that exists in everything you encounter. You pause to reflect. If awakening is always rooted in the present, then where else could it be, Zen masters might ask? If not now, when? If not here, where? The question does not push it simply. Reminds you to rest where you are, beneath still branches. In this exact breath, the shade cools your skin, the leaves sway like slow waves in the sky, and the stories of the Buddha's vigil blend with your own resting body. You sense that the Bodhi tree is not just in India, not just in legend, it is here, within you. Each time you choose stillness over striving, presence over distraction. And so, as the day lingers, you let yourself sink even deeper into calm, feeling the branches above and the earth below as one continuous embrace. In that embrace, awakening is not distant at all. It is here, now, rooted in the gentle truth that you are already whole. Wind down 300 words. The air softens as though the day itself is exhaling, and you find your own breath slowing in harmony. The rustle of leaves overhead fades into a quiet rhythm, almost like the sound of water moving gently over stones. Every detail becomes slower, gentler shadows stretching across the ground, the warmth of sunlight dimming, the steady heartbeat of the earth beneath you. The Bodhi tree's branches no longer seem separate from your thoughts. They spread outward, spacious and calm, while your worries seem to slip downward, dissolving into the soil like fallen leaves. You realize you do not have to hold them. The tree teaches you this with every breath of wind. Let go, let fall, let rest. The Buddha's awakening beneath these still branches is not just a story from long ago. It is a reminder that awakening is woven into ordinary life, into your breath, your body, this very moment. As you rest here, you sense the truth settling deeper. Peace is not something you chase, it is something you allow. Zen teachers often remind students that silence itself is a kind of teaching. Tonight, that silence holds you like soft cloth, wrapping around your body, lulling you into rest. As your breath slows, feel every worry slip away, like leaves floating down a quiet stream. Each exhale releases more, each inhale welcomes calm. The Bodhi tree still stands, patient and unshaken,
its shade wide enough for all. Beneath it, you are reminded nothing is missing, nothing needs to be forced. Peace is already here, already yours, waiting beneath still branches. So let yourself drift now, carried by the calm you have uncovered. The night will hold you, the earth will support you, and the branches will whisper their quiet lullaby until sleep finds you.